Okay, welcome everyone. This is work session, legislative session, or legislative day number 6, and this is the work session for that session. First up, we're going to start with a reappointment for Councilman Ketch on the Board of Appeals, Mr. Joseph Evans. Is Mr. Evans with us today? Oh, good. Mr. Evans, you want to come up? How are you today? Yeah, right up here. We already have the mic on for you. So if you wanted to say a few words about your, I know you've been on the Board of Appeals, and if you want to tell us a little bit about you. And
okay. Well, I've been on the board 9 years now. I think it's kind of surprising to me, but I think I'm the most senior member. I'm a lawyer. I practiced mostly in federal court for 30-some years as a federal prosecutor and as a federal defender. I taught at the University of Maryland Law School. I don't think I've done anything to embarrass Baltimore County during my tenure on the Board of Appeals. I don't think I've embarrassed Councilman Ketch. I think I do a credible job there. Good.
Councilman Ketch, I might have missed the order, but did you want to say a few words?
Thank you very much. I can't say enough positive about Joe Evans. I know because of other people have told me the excellent job he does on the Board of Appeals. I think it's so unique that he's worked for the federal government, helping both sides, defense and a prosecutor. So he has experience. That's a wide experience, and I'm so proud to have him on the board representing the 3rd District. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ketch. Were there any questions from the members for Mr. Evans? Councilman Jones.
No, Mr. Evans, I guess I want to thank you for stepping up and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate everyone on the council as well. Thank you.
And thanks for not embarrassing us and your family.
I try my best. I try my best.
Thank you, and thank you for your 9 years of service on the Board of Appeals. We look forward to reappointing you at the legislative session. So
thank you.
Thank you for coming in today too. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have some fiscal items. First up is a contract with Wilshire Advisors, LLC. They're the investment advisor services for the employee retirement system, and Director Kevin Reed from Office of Budget and Finance is going to speak to that.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members. Just to give some background on this item, since the 1980, the Board of Trustees of the Employees Retirement System, our pension system, has had an investment advisor that assists us with managing our $3.6 billion pension plan. Our current advisor is NEPC, and as the note states, our contract will be expiring with them on June 30th of this year. So we wanted to take the board wanted to take a holistic approach and really take a fresh look at who was out there and what we could do. And we issued an RFP for these services. We received 3 bids, and we selected Wilshire based on their experience, research, their niche strategies in private markets, and their strong commitment to diversity. Again, the committee that we formed was we welcomed in members from labor. We welcomed in the board itself to sit on the committee, and the board did approve this contract, and now we're moving it on to the council for approval. And Wilshire has experience doing very large funds, which we are at this point with the assets that we have. and the details of the contract that would commence on this July. So we are early in the approval process, but again, we'd like to rather be early than late, and this will give us, with your approval, some time to set us up administratively to be effective on July 1. It'll continue for 5 years and would renew automatically for 1 additional 2-year periods. The cost is about annual flat fee of $300,000 for these advisory services. And again, it was based on 3 proposals received, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the members? None?
Mr. Chair, we have one speaker registered
Oh,
for
we
this
do?
item.
Okay,
Yes.
great.
Dave
Yes.
Rose.
Go ahead, Ms.
Mr. Rose.
Mr. Rose, how are you? Good to see you.
Hi, my name is Dave Rose. I'm the president of the Baltimore County Fraternal Order of Police. I've served as an elected representative on the Pension Board of Trustees since 2012 and was recently elected to an additional 4th term that goes through December of 2028. This process for the pension consultant has been the most inclusive and transparent process involving our pension system in my entire tenure. I'd like to thank Kevin Reed and Bob Burrows for their leadership in making that possible. This was not always the case. We have a reasonable assumption rate of 6.375, which ensures conservative and prudent management of the pension assets. Many of our managed funds have underperformed and carry costly fees, which is a concern we need to address for the long-term health of our system. NEPC has been our consultant for over 20 years. However, I think it's time for a fresh perspective on our system and investments moving forward. After thorough discussions during the RFP process, I made the motion to move on from NEPC and partner with Wilshire moving forward for better performance and cost efficiency. That motion received a proper second and was subsequently approved unanimously. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? None? Okay. Next up, we have Director Lafferty for a contract of sale of Richard and Chanda Salmon's acquisition of a conservation easement at 5130 Long Green Road in, looks like Glen Arm. Hello, Director Lafferty.
Good to see you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. Mr. Chairman, you've just read half of my comments, and I appreciate that.
Oh, good.
So the administration requests the approval of the county council to acquire this easement from Richard and Chandra Salmons. This will add 34.54 acres of easement property in the Long Green Rural Legacy area. The amount of the easement be purchased by the county is $259,290. This comes to $7,507 per acre in accordance with the scoring tool that's used on properties that are submitted in the Long Green Rural Legacy area. This has additional value because it's adjacent to a MALF easement as well as a local land trust easement. We seek those kind of adjacencies when we are scoring because we believe it adds greater value and added value as well to the watershed. With this, Mr. Chairman, I request the approval of this purchase.
Okay. Any comments from the members? Councilman Ketch, it's in your district.
I just appreciate all the programs to preserve farmland in northern Baltimore County. I think everyone knows how important the farm industry, the agricultural industry is to our county. So I appreciate it. I believe, Steve, we're approaching 72,000 acres when all the programs are combined.
Yes, sir.
Great. That's good news. Thank you.
Okay. think, oh, Councilman Patoka.
Director Lafferty,
Yes,
just a question, just want to get your thoughts on what the future looks like in terms of preservation easements, given the budget constraints at both our level and the state level.
Well, we're working on the FY24 allocations from the from the state government right now, Councilman. We also do have, thanks to the voters of the county, additional money that's in the FY26 capital budget, and so I won't say we're in great shape, but I think we're in very good shape to continue going forward. The one area that remains to be a challenge is the coastal rural legacy area. I know Councilman Marks has helped us try to obtain and identify some potential acquisitions there. But other than that, we have some very strong land trusts that are really supportive of our work.
Thank you, Director Lafferty.
Welcome.
Councilman Mark.
Yeah, thank you for your support of this action. Agricultural preservation is going to be a key theme today, and I just want to thank you for all of your efforts and those of your department.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lafferty.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Absolutely. Next up, we have Deb Schindel, Chief of Property Management, on a contract for Action Elevator Company, elevator and lift maintenance and repair services.
Good afternoon, Councilman Chair and members of the County Council. The administration is requesting an approval of a contract for Action Elevator LLC, and the contract for elevators, lifts, maintenance, repairs, and other related services for elevators throughout Baltimore County. The total compensation paid to the contractors exceed the sum of the County Council approved appropriation amount during the term of the life of the agreement. It is it's a one-year contract with 4 one-year renewals. It has an MBE goal of 25%. This contract was an RFP evaluation process with the committee. They were selected based on best value, best qualified, and experience. We do have an auditor's question, so I'd like to address that. It is in regards to the current contract. The current contract has 1.5 years left on it. We plan to use the existing contract up into the not to exceed. The reason we had to do a new contract is because with the FY25 funding, we actually needed to almost double the not to exceed for us and able to provide renovation services to 6 of our elevators and one of our lifts, which would have taken us well over our not to exceed. During that discussion with the Office of Procurement, it came to our attention that the previous contract was basically majority service and some modernization. Because we were able to get record funding in FY25 to really address a lot of our elevators, we needed to add an MBE to the contract because the service doesn't really allow for a large MBE, but modernization does allow a vendor to use more of the MBE. So that is exactly why we had to do a new contract for it, and we plan to use it as soon as the other MBE is exhausted. Is there any questions?
Question, Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Schindel just made me think about 305 Washington Avenue. Just curious, how are the elevators in that building?
We are actually getting ready to do some upgrade to those also. Because they really need to have the video conferencing. I don't know if you are aware that there was back 2 years ago, the new standard is you have to add video conferencing to them. So we are going to do a modernization in those elevators. It should start very soon, and we're going to add that video conferencing. So that's what we're trying to do across in all of our elevators as we get funding. So that was part of that.
Do we have video conferencing in elevators in this building?
No, actually, there is
not
2 in
allowed.
the county office building will be done, and Drum Castle. So what part of the renovation funding was that we were going to upgrade the elevators for 305. So that was part of the funding that was in, it was part of that.
Was that
But we
part
have them.
of the acquisition or part of the fiscal year 26 renovation?
That was part of the 25
25, I'm
acquisition.
sorry.
Yes, not acquisition, but the renovation. That was included in that.
Okay.
Yep.
And what is that for? If you get stuck on the elevator, you get to talk to somebody?
Yeah, so the new law as ADA is, yes, video conferencing, and anything that we're doing now must be, it will be able to, when you call 911, you will actually be able to have a video conference to that. That's the new requirements for ADA.
How
So
about
that's
the elevation and, I don't know the right words, but the elevator going up and down, the mechanisms that make that function?
That's all part of modernization, yes. All of those, most of our elevators that we're doing this year are becoming 20 years old, and about that time is when you should do a modernization, meaning you go in and you replace all of the majority of the parts that go in so they continue to operate mechanically.
I don't want to dwell on this, but it just makes me think of some of the actions we took in the past. So when we did the inspection, when we acquired the building, did we look at the mechanisms that allow the elevator to do what it's supposed to do, and the electronics that make that work? And did we use that as part of our evaluation on the purchase price?
Yeah, we did take that in consideration when we developed the request for the money for FY25. It was in that list of what we thought we would want to be able to address holistically.
Okay. I mean, I have concerns, but I'm not going to belabor the point beyond this, beyond what we've already discussed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. Any other questions for Ms. Schindel? Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for being here. Next up, Ms. Director Buckler from Department of Public Works and Transportation, DPWT, on, looks like one contract for UniFirst Corporation, uniform laundry and rental services, shop supervisors, and equipment/vehicle mechanics.
Correct.
Nice.
So for the record, I'm Lauren Buckler. I'm the Director for Public Works and Transportation. We have a contract before you with UniFirst. It is a cooperative agreement through Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing that was solicited through competitive procurement. This is for laundering of our towels and uniforms and rags for our equipment maintenance team and vehicle maintenance team through the Office of Budget and Finance. So because of the work that they do, we send their uniforms out for laundering to make sure they get the chemicals off of them. The initial term will start as soon as it's approved by council, and it is expected to go through March of 2028. There are 3 additional one-year renewal options, and the overall contract is valued at $465,000. Happy to take any questions that you have.
Is this something different than we do now? Do we have another contract with someone else?
We do this currently. The existing contract is with Cintas Corporation, and that was approved in 2020, and that expires the end of March. So if this is approved prior to that, we would start using this contract once this one is approved.
And was bid out?
It was a cooperative purchasing agreement through Sourcewell. So Sourcewell bid it out competitively, and then it can be used by local municipalities or other government organizations.
Okay, all right. Any questions from the members? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Next up, Director Chris Martin on agreements. It's several agreements, cooperative agreements utilizing State of Maryland Department of Information Technology Consulting and Technical Services. Hello, Director Martin, how are you?
Good afternoon. Good. How's everybody?
Good.
Thank you, council members. This fiscal matter is for the county to establish a cooperative agreement, multiple cooperative agreements utilizing the State of Maryland Department of Information Technology Consulting and Technical Services, also known as CATS Plus, for staffing solutions as needed. The contractors shall provide these services for supplemental staff engagements using one or more of the 115 labor categories. The purpose of awarding contracts is to provide the county the ability to procure IT technical and consulting services in a timely and cost-effective manner for supplemental staffing by issuing task orders specific to the needs. The contracts will become effective when executed by the county and shall continue through April 21st, 2028, the initial term. Encumbrances will be made whenever staffing solution services are procured as part of a TO RFP. A purchase order will be issued to the awarded contractor at the time with the funding information.
Good. There were some auditors' questions. Did you see those?
I did, yes. So,
did you want to address?
Yes. The first question was, how will the office ensure it will not ultimately award work at unreasonably high rates provided in the many of the contracts? A specific request for proposal will be issued to all the qualified CATS Plus contractors. The contractor submits resumes and a competitive labor rate that is equal to or lower than the labor rate submitted on the contract. The office's contract manager will evaluate the proposals and award the work to the contract whose proposal represents the best value for the county. The reality is with this also is that most of these are related to projects that have funding tied to them or services that have funding. So I still have to work within my budget to get the best value for the work provided. And after the office's, this is the next question, after the office's contract management committee evaluates the contractor specific proposals for supplemental staffing, will the council have an opportunity to approve the awards, including the hourly rates? Given that County Charter Section 715 requires that any contract must be approved by the county council before it is executed if the contract is for services for a term in excess of 2 years or involving the expenditure of more than $25,000 per year. This is a secondary solicitation, so it would not go for council approval. The purpose of this, it's similar to how we did a previous RFP, which was called IT CATS. We did that internally, and it is so that we can rapidly respond to events. So if there are things like cyber events, or we have in the past used the previous contracts to respond to environmental impacts. So we had vehicles coming in in surges that need to have electronics put in them. I don't need permanent staff to handle the surges, but if we don't handle those cars will sit unused on lots for weeks or months on end. And so we limit ourselves internally to respond to fast changing environments. And then the last question was, for the county's prior similar contracts, please explain the circumstances surrounding the extension of contract terms, including at least one case extending the contract subsequent to its expiration. The contracts were extended 120 days past the contract expiration date, which was allowable per the contract terms under Section 3.1. And I'm happy to take any other questions that come up.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions from the members? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
so much.
Have a great afternoon. All right. Next up, Bill 1825, zoning regulations, solar facilities. Councilman Marks, did you want to talk about the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill 1825 amends Baltimore County's zoning regulations to add a proximity restriction to certain solar facilities. No one doubts that solar energy is a promising form of power, but there continue to be questions about the impact of industrial-scale solar fields on our agricultural land. In an attempt to mitigate the impact of these facilities and disperse them throughout the county council passed legislation several years ago that restricts the number of solar fields to 10 per councilmanic district. Unfortunately, that is not exactly what we have seen. We have not seen a dispersal of these facilities. The solar industry is not doing enough, quite frankly, to utilize existing industrial or commercial sites such as shopping centers. And there has all too often been clustering many of these facilities in rural communities, such as in Kingsville, where there are no less than 5 current approved or proposed solar facilities. And I put a map up there. That is certainly not equitable. My legislation adds a 1,000-foot distance requirement to better disperse these facilities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Councilman Young.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The map that was up there earlier, and I hadn't seen it before, what's the distance between those facilities?
Well, that's an area in Kingsville, and there you can see the clustering of those solar farms. That's probably 1 mile.
Okay.
About a mile. A lot of the residents who are affected by these are here today. Yeah.
Awesome. And I appreciate the conversation related to the bill. Anecdotally, I'm not in the industry, so I'm only aware of previous legislation, one that this council's done, but also work that's been done in the legislature. In my understanding, there's 2 types of, possibly 3, but really 2 main types of solar type developments, right? One that just puts in solar wherever there's open space, but then others that takes into consideration the historic nature of the land that it's being put on. The term I was looking for earlier was agrivoltaics, so it actually is in tandem with, if in a particular farm, for instance, so if you're growing something using that method, you can then also have solar facilities and also continue to be a farm without disturbing or significantly impacting the original purpose or use. So I just wanted to see if you'd be open to, and this is the first work session, amendments to acknowledge that type of approach, because I completely understand what you're trying to get with the packing of them in certain areas. But it also seems like in the industry, there's different approaches that take into consideration, maybe not grouping, but also historic use. So if you'd be open to it, putting some amendments together that takes into consideration that might even exempt. So a farm next to a farm that still continues to be a farm, but also could utilize on private property, their property, potential solar operations on it.
Yeah,
we can talk about it.
I'd be open to that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman Young. Any others before? I know we have a lot of speakers. Councilman Jones.
Yes, I guess I remember us going through this long ordeal as it related to solar farms and where they would be and how many we would have in each district. And at that time, I remember some of the testimony of some of the people that came here and testified, and some of them had some very compelling stories. Stories like, this farm has been in my family for 3 or 4 generations, and unless we put this part of our farm on solar, we are going to go out of business. And I'm thinking that all of those images that you showed represent someone who owned that property, who operated within the rules and decided that, yes, they want to put a solar farm on their property. And I guess I'm thinking about property rights. Isn't this like a further restriction on the people who own the property? Because as I understand it, the reason, like, you just can't put a solar farm anywhere. It has to be within close proximity to what, like a relay station or a substation, so that you can transmit the power. Like, if you look at my district, prior to me being redistricted, taking on Route 30, the only place you would find a solar farm in my district would be the areas where there was sufficient acreage to do it. So are we adding more restrictions that will in fact prohibit people from having the right to produce, especially in today's time when energy costs so high? People are looking for alternatives to reduce their energy bills. So are we working in the wrong direction?
I believe we're looking out for the property rights of everyone around these solar facilities. And I think that's a proper function for county government.
The people around the property versus the people who own the property.
I think we're, county government in general is about balancing those needs, right?
Exactly.
But I would argue that we're also looking at comprehensively everyone's rights, including the ones that are surrounding these facilities.
The people around the facility or around the property should have more rights than the people who own the property.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we should take their considerations into account.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
go ahead, I'm done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sure. I mean, I was going to go to, what if you wanted to build a brown rancher? Should your neighbors have the right to say, I don't like brown, therefore?
That's a red herring, Councilman. That's not,
Okay.
no one's saying that.
Councilman Kent.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you look at the bill that passed some years ago, which of course I opposed because I really thought it was the wrong way to go. And I think what's happened in the last 5-6 years shows that it was the wrong decision. But anyhow, as part of that particular legislation, there is a part to it that allows farmers to install solar if the solar power is going to be used to power the activities of the farm. And that's different than the 2 megawatt solar facilities, which do need to be hooked up to a relay station so that the power is shared with the community. By community, I mean all of BGE. So I wanted to ask our secretary if this legislation that Councilman Marks has put in, would it in any way affect the part of the legislation that basically allows, without any restriction as to how many farms can do this, is it going to restrict the ability of a farm to install solar if that solar is to be used to simply power the activities of that particular farm?
It will not if that farm is adhering to that exception that is in the solar facility regulations, which requires, I think, 66% of the power to be utilized by that farm. So if that is the case, there are these restrictions or the restriction that is proposed by this bill would not apply.
Yeah, I think this bill is excellent. I have, if you want to see some solar facilities, come out to the 3rd District. And not that I'm bragging about them because they're not great. I'll put it to you that way. And I can show you homes where the solar facility is right next to homes, like 50 feet from a home. And there's a lot of things with that I have a problem with. Last week, I forwarded to every council member a report on solar energy that's about 4 years old. And what it concludes when you read the report, it talks about how many megawatts of power Baltimore County and Baltimore City should produce in order to meet our requirements. And it really questions whether or not solar should be installed on farmland. And you can well imagine thinking of the fact that Northern Baltimore County is a place where we grow food. And food is very vital, obviously, to our to Central Maryland. And, I have been in supermarkets in our area, and sometimes the shelves are not filled, and it's because of the problem of delivery delays, etc. Well, the report concludes that we can provide the amount of energy through solar that's needed by using buildings that exist or going to be built, installing solar on those buildings, installing solar on individual homes. And the third thing is installing solar on parking lots. And when you think about this, is all space that is available today. And it's a perfect situation where these solar panels can be installed and can provide us the energy, yet not give up or sacrifice any of the land that's used for growing crops, for raising animals, etc. So I don't know if you've had the opportunity to read that report, but it is well done. And it's a real eye opener. And I just wish we had had this report 5, 6, 7 years ago when we were looking at this issue, because when we were looking at this issue, I honestly don't believe we knew enough about it to make some of the decisions that were made. Another thing I noticed is that if sometimes these solar companies will not use the most up-to-date solar panels. And when they're cheaper panels, the solar arrays have to take up more land. For instance, at one time, the 2 megawatts would take up about 15 acres. Today, if you have better solar panels, if you use the better ones, I've seen it shrink to close to 5 acres. So there's a lot that to learn that I wish we had known 5, 6, 7 years ago. So if anyone didn't get the report I sent, please let my office know, and I will send you another copy of that report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's an interesting debate, renewable energy versus land use regulation. And so in order for us to evaluate that, I want to piggyback on a comment that Councilman Catch made and maybe ask the staff to do a little research so that we're armed with information. And so Councilman Catch is correct. I remember when we were first dealing with this, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we were talking about 2 megawatts. And my recollection, Councilman Catch, is it was 10 acres to generate 2 megawatts.
I think it shrunk to 10 acres, but when it first started, before you were elected, it was 15 at the time. So that does represent more efficient and effective solar panels.
That's the exact nature of my question, is what has technology done to this whole formula of what a panel will yield, how much acreage do you need to get to those 2 megawatts? Is it now 3 acres, 4 acres, 5 acres? I wonder if there's any, your report sounds like it's 4 or 5 years old, which I think in terms of how technology advances may not be the most recent data. But I was wondering, Mr. Secretary, if your team can give us a more recent energy yield, if there are any national standards in terms of what's the minimum amount of acreage that will yield 2 megawatts. And that way we'll know whether we're talking about property that's 10 acres, 4 acres, 5 acres, 2 acres. I think that will help us in our decision-making because it'll also, I think, have a relation to how impactful it is to the surrounding communities.
I have a recollection, Mr. Patoka, Now, it goes back to 2017, but my recollection of 2 megawatts then was about 13 acres, but we can certainly look into that and get you some 2025 recollections.
And I don't want to call out Polly, but Polly, if you, he said, no, don't call me out. If you have any recent information on that and would share it with us, that would really appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Katz.
Yeah, as I said, I've seen as few as 6-7 acres needed for the 2 megawatts. And it's a function of the quality of the solar panel. And also you have to look at the property itself. Trees, how long does it actually get sunlight? I mean, there's so many factors in there, but the major situation is that the better the solar panel, the more efficient and effective, the fewer acres you put up. I mean, you need. But this report that came out 4 years ago concludes that it really is not in our best interest to utilize farmland to locate these solar panels. It makes much more sense to use parking lots, to use buildings, etc. We're spending millions of dollars to preserve agricultural land in northern Baltimore County. And thankfully, those solar panels can't be installed on that property. So I think what Councilman Patoka is asking for will be very valuable to any future future deliberations. I'll just tell you now that I plan to put in legislation that will not allow the siting of solar panels on prime and productive soil. Very few states in this country have prime and productive soil. It is the most, it's the best soil you can have for growing crops. And that's all I'll say about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilman Katz. And one thing I would say might be a longer term solution is if we can encourage canopies on parking lots, on any buildings that are out there, and on those canopies, have solar on those canopies. I know I was at a trip in the West Coast when my son was in a baseball tournament out there, and every field we went to on the West Coast, every parking lot at the ball field had a canopy on it. And on those canopies were solar panels. And it wasn't an anomaly of it was here or there, it was everywhere. And I just think the West, I'm not saying that everything they do on the West Coast is great, but that's one thing I think that they've got it right. And I got to tell you, I feel like I'm seeing double right now because I see 2 Miss Wallingtons here right now. And I'm not seeing double. There are 2 Miss Wallingtons right here right now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Sir.
Councilman Young,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to the,
do you want to read the report that Councilman Katz sent us?
sure, if everyone would just buckle up for a second.
Does everyone have 4 hours?
I was just, sorry, just to clarify, because I hadn't heard the argument related to canopies. This wouldn't apply to that situation if they're within 1,000 feet of each other?
Feet. It's a 1,000-foot distance between solar facilities.
And facility being, so between parking lots or potential parking facilities? Anything?
Anything, yes. The edge of the property.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted to clarify based on that last comment. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I was just, I guess, wanted to provide a little information out for whatever it's worth. I guess Googled it, and according to Google, 6 to 8 acres of land are needed to produce 1 megawatt of electricity from a solar farm.
What's that again?
Google.
What's it say? 6 to 8?
6 to 8.
There you go. I know we have speakers, and I missed something. Deputy Director Richardson is here about the enough capacity building grant. And I think you testified last work session. Is this is a second on it or no? Yes. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Richardson so he doesn't have to sit here for the rest of his life?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll clear that one. All right, on to speakers, unless members have any other comments. Councilman Catch, I did read the solar report too, and I wasn't making fun of you, just. I know we could read the report into the record. And that
I
might
didn't
be,
take
that
it.
might be too much.
I think Councilman Catch did read it into the
Well,
It's true, first speaker.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker is Patricia Malone, who is here in person.
Ms. Malone, how are you today? Good.
Good evening, Chairman Ertel and members of the council. I'm speaking today in opposition to Bill 1825. This bill was actually prompted by a filing my client made for a special exception for a solar facility in Kingsville, and it's one of the ones that Councilman Marks showed on his screen. As my client, who is also here, will explain, he didn't make this filing in isolation. He actually met with Councilman Marks. He met with the community several times, in fact. Only after that outreach did he decide to make the filing. His filing, and I reviewed it, and we filed it with the zoning office, complies with zoning. It met all applicable setbacks, as was outlined in the law that several of you passed in 2017. It did require a special exception. We were about to go to the hearing. The sign got posted, and he started hearing some complaints, and he agreed to postpone the hearing in good faith. Councilman Marks chose to use that additional time to file Bill 1825 in an attempt to kill the project. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about whether we should have solar, where we should have solar, but this bill specifically would draw a line that took into account the entire property basically and not allow solar on this particular property. This property in question is not a farm. It's actually a 22-acre piece of property that is partially wooded. It is very close to 95. It actually won't perk, so it's not usable for much of anything. So that's why the client thought solar would be a good option. And again, I have the whole packet of all of the bills that have ever been considered by this council on this. And again, my client is following the rules. There is a 50-foot setback to a residential property line that the solar facility would comply with. Consistent with what Councilman Jones found on the internet, the special exception area that he is proposing is 13 acres plus or minus on 22 acres. And that takes into account not only the solar panels, it takes into account any drive access, it takes into account the buffers, the landscaping. So you can't just do it on, a few acres like Councilman Catch was discussing. So I would ask the council not to change the rules on my client mid-process. The 5th District is not inundated with these facilities, Councilman Marks. You heard Councilman Catch, who I believe has at least 9 or 10 approved in his district. You have, from what the zoning office says, you have 3 constructed facilities. I think the ones you're seeing very close to 95 are actually 2. I did one of them with Power 52, and the one adjacent to it is one facility that looks like 3. So I would ask that there be some consideration given to the fact that my client spent money to get to this point. And if you're going to proceed with a bill like this, I would ask if you would grandfather proposals that would have already been filed. Thank you.
May I respond, Mr. Chairman? How often are we asked by development attorneys to change the rules for developments? Seriously.
Am I supposed to respond to that?
Thank you.
I agree with you.
Okay. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Next speaker is Kalindi Hooper, who is here in person.
I'm all of a sudden regretting
Ms. Cooper.
signing up quickly. Hi.
Hooper, sorry.
Hooper.
Not Cooper, Hooper.
Hooper. I had a response. I had a statement laid out, but after that, I feel like I need to respond. My property is landlocked by this solar farm that they're requesting. It surrounds us on 4 sides. They want to rip out the woods all around my home and build solar and surround me by a fence. They said they reached out to the community. They didn't reach out to us. We are landlocked by them, and they never knocked on our door and said, I'm sorry. The first we heard of this was that sign going up. The first we had to prepare any type of statement or say, hey, we don't agree with this, was that sign going up. So we reached out to David Marks, and I am very thankful we did, because they hid the sign so that nobody on the road could see it. People who were up the road on a dead-end street couldn't see the sign unless we told them about it. So I'm sorry, but 1,000 feet does not seem unreasonable. There is a reason it was 10 in a district, and they restricted the size of these facilities. If this goes in, I am going to be living in the middle of an industrial solar farm. No neighbors, no hedges, just farm of solar everywhere I look. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Hooper. Did anyone have a question?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Councilman Ketch.
yes, what is happening to Ms. Hooper happens more than you think it does. I mean, I can show you in my district areas where these solar facilities are within 50 feet of your house of a home. And in fact, I could show one of them where 3 sides of the house have the solar panels. And in regard to existing woods, et cetera, they come down mostly. So which is bad. You know, one of the things that I get concerned about is stormwater management with the solar panels. And of course, in this case, if you're taking down the trees, et cetera, what you're doing is you are increasing the amount of storm water. So, you know, I'd like the county and the state of Maryland, let's get away from solar facilities on farmland. It just plain isn't smart, especially when we have parking lots and buildings out there where these solar facilities can be installed and be a real plus in our efforts to produce energy. So it's been I have contributed a lot of my personal money to court suits where we've tried to fight it in the district. But unfortunately, you know, we haven't been we have been successful. 1 or 2 of them have been dropped. But, you know, we need to move on with this issue. We need to look at it differently. And the way to look at it is let's get away from farmland and let's do the parking lots, the buildings, et cetera, which makes a lot more sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Ketch. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Our next speaker is Michael Miklasevich, who is here in person. And I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you? I won't attempt to butcher it. Miklasevich. That's not too bad.
No,
Just have to know how to say it.
that's it. I'm for this legislation. I live on Pfeiffer's Road. They just, you know, I'm sure nobody up here there would want their house surrounded by a solar field. I mean, we've got them on the right, we got them on the left. They want to expand the one in front of us. It's just not right. I mean, there's better options, better places to put it. You know, Bob might have spent money on the property and everything, but we got vested interest in our homes, you know. Real estate appraiser says, yeah, your property's going to go down in value, you know. So what are we to do? That's it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Okay, Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Bob Prasad, who is here in person.
Mr. Prasad, good afternoon.
Mr. Chair, good afternoon, council members. I'm the owner of the intended property. It's located in Mr. Marks' district. I just wanted to give some background on my perspective. About a few years ago, I met with Mr. Marks, and I met with the official association for Kingsville. I reviewed the process in which we were thinking about my land and what I would like to do with it, what would be more productive. We went through the process, we listened to the association, we had a few concerns. We addressed those concerns. This process was done with full knowledge with everybody involved, the association, which is the only avenue I had, and Mr. Marks, which represents his district. So the background is, once we left that meeting, we decided that looking at all the regulations that's currently on the books and apply to the solar industry, it was determined that we can meet all those regulations and we can meet all the concerns, which was two that the association forwarded to us. We made the decision to go ahead and start the third-party reports in preparation for zoning exception, which is required by the county. So we continued that process for about 2 years. We invested the money. We invested in the process of third-party reports. I think we kept everybody up to speed and in line with our progress. Everything takes time. So every time we got to a point, I reached out to the association and informed them of that. We got to the point where all of our third-party reports were completed. We worked with the county, the environmental. We worked with the forestry. We worked and complied with all the regulations that's on the books that we're trying to adhere to. In that process, we got to the point of where we were going to zoning for the special exception. We received a hearing date. Mr. Marks did call me and inform me that there were some concerns from the immediate neighbors and that we should meet to discuss them. I obviously agreed. We met with the neighbors and Mr. Marks present. It was emotional because everybody is concerned, which is understandable. Mr. Marks did suggest that in good faith that we postpone the hearing to give the neighbors time to consult with their experts, third parties. I thought that was fair. I guess approximately a couple of days before the hearing was scheduled, which was then postponed, Mr. Marks introduced this bill. This bill, I cannot speak to any other development. I cannot speak to the future adverse effects on any development coming along. But I know from the situation that we have and the color that I've just given you, this bill is specifically designed to take away my right to build on my property. The 1,000-foot cuts into the process that there's nothing left, because in this process, on a 22-acre land that's not agricultural, we have preserved a little over 9 acres of that land for forestry preservation. So we're using approximately 13 acres of the land to produce the 2 megawatt of power, which is the county limit. The 13 acres is required, and addressing the fact that it is technology, as it's brought up here today, the technology is still requires that amount with the infrastructure that must go along with it, such as access to the panels and power shacks, et cetera, to run the facility. We also adhere to all of the fencing and the landscaping that goes around this property. The other thing that we did on this property is that Mr. Hooper and his wife, my property, their property is set back. My property is in front of their property. We have about a 1/4 acre of land that is their front yard. And I've told the community this, that we don't plan on building or doing anything with that front yard in order to preserve quality of life. We don't want them to suffer with a building in their front of their yard. So we're committed to not doing anything on that piece of property. So we have done everything we possibly can so far to make this project a very livable project. We've preserved land, we've preserved the watershed, we've have a landscaping plan in place that this facility will not be visible. This particular legislation is intended for one purpose. I'm not saying it's good or bad. For me, it's bad because it takes away my rights to build something on my property. I'm following the rules that's set by this council. I invested in this property with the third-party reports for this project following the rules. I don't see how this is a fair process in order to introduce legislation intended to kill the project. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions? Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Prasad. Can I ask a question? Did I hear you say that you had an approval from the community association?
I did not have an approval per se. When I visited,
Support from the community?
the association indicated they will neither support nor oppose.
I see.
They would be neutral.
And what Mr. Marks, do you know what association that is?
It's the King, I'm sorry.
I'm going to speak later. The Greater Kingsville Civic Association.
Gotcha. Okay, I may be premature with my questions then, so thank you. That's it, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Jones.
Yes, one of the questions I had was about the claim that you was going to, it would be landlocked with the solar. So I think you've answered that. You said the front, I'm looking at this property now.
Okay.
From the maps, and I see their property is sort of like a flag lot. They have the driveway and then the home. So directly in front, you're not going to have, you're committed to not put anything. How close to the rear of their property are you, will the solar farm be?
Right.
The rear and the two sides.
Right. So current regulation is that from not their building, but from their property line, we have to give a 50-foot boundary.
Exactly.
Yes, and we have to landscape that.
Okay. So within that 50-foot now, is there trees now?
There are trees there, yes. And
If you're using 13 of the 20 acres, is it possible you can move back further and still not hit the 50-foot buffer on the rear end of the property?
Our current layout, I can't answer that question definitively. Could we give a little bit more room?
Yes.
I think we could. I don't know what that would be. What the plan and the landscape plan indicate is that we're taking down the trees, which, by the way, is not considered prime forestry. but we're replanting trees at a lower height because the trees currently right now is about 30 feet plus, which inhibits the sunlight from hitting the solar panels. So we have to replant trees to use as a barrier.
Okay, so forgive me, I don't want to get us into a situation where we're talking at one another, and I realize this is probably not the place for negotiations, but I guess my question is there a space, a distance that would satisfy you in terms of him having a solar behind your home beyond the 50 feet? But sure.
You're going to be speaking. I believe you're the next speaker. Okay.
Is that right?
I'm sorry.
So back down to the road?
Well, it's a carve out. Their home, it's like a horseshoe,
Yes, I see.
right? So we have the land on both sides coming down and in the rear. We also have the land in front of their home, which we talked about not doing anything with and keeping that space available. But on the sides of the land, to make the project feasible, we have to put some solar panels in there, which is subjected to the same buffer requirements and landscaping requirements.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Certainly. Our next speaker is Douglas Hooper, who is here in person.
Good evening, Mr. Hooper. Do you want me to hand those? Or- Hand them here, I'll get them. One more, thank you. You just have to press the button. There you go.
Okay. First, I'd like to start with Mr. Prasad being open and honest and notifying the community. While he did go to the Kingsville Association, when his surveyor came out to survey the land, I naively took him around and showed him where all the points to the property were, and I asked why he was surveying, and what I was told was that they're going to use the land for farms for homeless people. That's what we got. That being said, I just want you to know we were not notified. Nobody on our street was notified, which he could have easily done. He bought this property knowing my house is in the center of it. And I'd just say that why a person would do that to another person, I don't know, but it doesn't seem right. And I ask that you give yourselves the power to stop this. You know, my grandfather bought this home in 1922, so we've been there 104 years, paying our taxes, doing everything right, you know, and I think this is a really bad way to be repaid for being civic-minded, for being a decent citizen, raising our families, you know. My children are going to the school I went to, and now my children, all they're gonna see when they look out their windows is solar fields. Yes, they'll have trees planted around them, but if you're at ground level, that's fine. But when you're looking out my windows, which I have in my house in the second floor, all I will see is solar. I have solar across the street. If he gets his way, I'll have solar on the other three sides. It's just, it's not right. And I ask you to do something to help me. Thank you.
One quick question, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Patoka.
Thank you for providing, it's very helpful. So from your house right now, you can see the existing solar facility that's across the street?
So that one is not as bad, right? So there's a tree line on the street.
I see.
And there's also some trees that were planted there. And, no amount of trees that go around this solar field will stop me from actually seeing it. Again, if you're at ground level, you're not going to see this. But we spend time in our bedroom. If I look out any of my windows, all I will see is solar at this point.
Thank you.
Councilman Young, I have one question, then I'll get you. Mr. Hooper, what is currently here? Is it just woods or?
It's a wooded area.
Who owned, was it a single owner or what?
So originally, my grandfather bought that property when he bought the rest of the property. When he passed away, he gave the land to his children. My mother got the house. An uncle who married into the family when my aunt, his wife, passed away, forced the sale to divvy up the money. His son immediately bought it and sold it to a developer. The developer couldn't do anything with it. It doesn't perk, but it's a great wooded area with vernal pools, a stream in the back. It's a very nice piece of property, and I think it's more beneficial as a wooded area than it will ever be as solar. As you can see, and you guys were talking about how many acres per megawatt of solar. So you see the facility across the street. You see how compact that is. That solar field is like a responsible solar field because it's compact. It doesn't have to cut down extra trees because of its odd shape. And so when you say maybe 6 acres per megawatt, that doesn't double when you go to 2 megawatts because you have the efficiency of using the same cut down area of woods that you don't have to duplicate for the second megawatts, if you understand. So the more compact it is, the less acreage you need. And this is an extremely non-compact solar facility. And it's taking up more acreage than it would ever need to, as you can see by several of the other sites.
Councilman Young?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Councilman Marks, this was the map that you showed earlier.
Yeah, it doesn't have, the map is slightly different, that his house is not in that first.
Yeah, my house is the one addition.
And then, again, this is the first hearing. I would be interested. So the existing solar facility nearby your house.
Yes.
Clearly, that's not 1,000 feet. But I'm trying to just gauge the size here. Even by passing the bill, if there was a configuration, I'm trying to just consider the fact. And you said that your family owned the land beforehand. So is the shape? You said that your family, your grandfather owned it?
Yeah, my grandfather owned that, and where you see some of the houses sort of up the street, and he sold off to people to build homes.
Was that recently?
Oh, no.
Okay,
He's been dead quite a long time.
Sorry, Got it. But this has always been part of it, this little pink area, right?
Yeah.
That was, okay.
Agreed, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Councilman, if we could just figure out the distance here, just wanted to try and figure out the ratio.
1,000 feet is, looks like it's 0.2 of a mile.
Gotcha. We'll talk, because there's no scale on the map. All good, thanks.
Okay, any others before we next speaker? Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro. Thank you, Mr. Hooper.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next registered speaker was Scott Manning, who registered virtually. but I do not see Mr. Manning on here. Let me double check, make sure he's not on by phone.
So he's not online?
No, sir.
All right, do you want to go to the
We'll go
next?
to the next one.
Jamie Manning.
Yep, Jamie Manning. Do not see them. Let me see, check the phone. Sorry, bear with me. Jamie Manning is not on either. So I will go to the next one.
Julie Young.
Yes, Julie Young, who is here in person.
Hi, Miss Young. Thanks for being here today.
So I'm Julie Young. I live on Road as well. I'm neighbors to Bellevue, Corinda, through the woods. And I'm for David Martin's legislation. And I'm just going to read my little spiel. The proposed solar farm, Pfeffer's Road, requires construction of 15 acres of old growth forest.
Turn the mic on.
There it is. The proposed solar farm on Pfeffer's Road will require the destruction of 15 acres of old-growth forested wetlands. Contrary to Mr. Prasad's perception, there are towering trees in that forest. I love that forest. I'm back in there all the time. I don't know if you like that or not, but I am. So, with my dog. Anyway, these forested woodlands is my favorite part of the home here in Kingsville. I value all the woodland creatures, especially the frog, toad, and salamander species that breed in the vernal pools all throughout that acreage of land. And that acreage of land, both sides of it slope down to a small stream that feeds into the Gunpowder River less than a mile away. Just so you know that. The clay base, those vernal pools literally teem with life every spring, starting right around the end of March, early April. The clay base of that forest is what allows those vernal pools to form, and that is why it won't perk for Mr. Prasad. But that's been a known fact for years. Without the extensive root system of that forest, there will be tons of sediment to come up and go into that little stream and then go right out to the Gunpowder to cloud it up, less than a mile away. I understand placing solar farms on cleared land. Even the one right across from us was farmland. I get it. And it is probably a much more efficient structure and layout than the one that he's proposing, which is this crazy loop of a V or of a horseshoe type thing. I just can't see why we would destroy forests and wetlands. Why do we have a green space initiative in the state if on the backside we're willing to destroy natural green space? Also, our Pfeffer's Road is very narrow, very rural. 2 cars coming each way. We have to slow down and kind of like figure out a way to get around each other. So how is a logging operation going to go down on that road? Not to mention we have the elementary school bus stop at the corner of our road, Pfeffer's Road, Dale Lane, and St. Stephen's Catholic Church across the street, which also has a school. How is that going to be safe for the families with small children? We have tons of kids on that street. So here's my statement. It is unacceptable that one man's ambition could cause the destruction of our beautiful forested neighborhood that backs up to Mount Vista Park. I understand that the owner of the property has rights to purposing his land. But where do his rights end when his planned actions directly and negatively affect the neighbors on Pfeffer's Road permanently? The owner will not be here, he doesn't live here, so we won't have to deal with any of the construction mess. How is this even remotely fair to us? Why is it okay for us to be surrounded by these solar farms? It's the duty of you folks here, our elected officials, to stand up for us on issues like this. We're hard-working, tax-paying citizens, and we deserve better, and our local government shouldn't allow this to happen to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Young. Yes, Councilman Young.
Ms. Young, what was the name of the park you had mentioned? Mount Vista. Mount Vista. And that's, okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Was that
Crandall.
Councilman Crandall, you're
Thank you,
somewhat muffled.
Just a quick question. I've sort of had the luxury of sitting before my laptop for the work session, but I could not find the property in question in time for my question. And it's a very simple question. Is the property, both properties that are in question, are they in the Chesapeake Bay critical area?
No.
They're not.
No, they're not.
Okay. But there is a stream feeding the watershed on the property.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
He asked whether it was in the critical area for the Chesapeake Bay, which it's not. And then he asked if there was a stream at the property. Correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Crandall. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Our next speaker is John Young, who is here in person.
Mr. Chair, I agree with all my neighbors. They covered it all.
Okay, thank you, sir. We appreciate your brevity.
Something to be said for brevity.
Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Our next speaker is Mary Schmid.
Schmid?
Yes, she is online.
Is it Schmid?
Ms. Schmid, you may begin your testimony. When you're ready, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, I live on Pfeffers Road. My comments are a little bit more general, although my house will directly be affected by the solar farm. About 630 feet of my yard is going to be solar farm. And the trees that they're planting, they may do something in 50 years when I'm dead, but they're not going to do a thing because the yard sloped down to the stream. So we will definitely see all these solar panels. The clustering of these solar farms within our rural residential communities can be very transformative, changing the very character of a community and severely impacting the ecological and environmental resources of a community. When rural residential community is replaced with the words, the neighborhood with all the solar farms, in general conversation, in real estate discussions, those neighborhoods will no longer be desirable and home prices will undoubtedly decrease. Nobody wants to live in a solar farm city. And let there be no doubt, this street is a residential street. This isn't a farmland somewhere isolated. There are houses on this street, small lots, and the woods go behind the houses that will be destroyed. And this lot is 100% wooded, as opposed to what was said earlier. We have an existing solar farm across from our driveway. We have many solar farms near us. The ones that are on farms do not have any farming underneath of them. So whether that's appropriate or not, that's not what they're doing. I just would, ask you to limit the proximity of some of these solar farms in areas like ours where we're just being surrounded. It hurts us. And that's it. That's all I have to say. I hope you approve it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Schmid.
Ms. Schmid, while I have you on, I do have a question for you. I reached out to you today. Did you mean to sign up for another bill as well?
No.
Okay,
No.
just wanted to confirm that.
It was the first time I ever did this. No. Thank you.
Not a problem. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't intending on speaking on another bill. Thank you.
No, thanks.
Who had the right pronunciation, Ms. Schmid?
It is Schmid.
Schmid, okay, good.
Yes. Thank
Ms. Castro is usually right.
That's a first.
No, it's not. Oh, you did? Oh, good. Oh, good. So you just let me butcher it.
I'm told she's always right, Mr. Chair.
We usually write like 98% of the time, right? All right, next speaker, Ms.
Our next speaker is Amy Ginger. Ms. Ginger, you are on. You may unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Well, she wasn't right that time because it is Ginger, but that's okay. Everyone gets that wrong. So not a problem at all. I'm actually here today on behalf of the Kingsville Civic Association. I want to follow up on a few things that Mr. Broussard put forward. So Mr. Broussard did reach out to the Kingsville Civic Association. The last time that we had a meeting with him where he went into detail regarding these solar panels was in May of 2024. At that time, the association did say they would not support nor oppose. However, we did not hear from Mr. Broussard again until the zoning sign went up and Councilman Marks had reached out to the association. Though we did attempt several times over those 8-ish months to contact Mr. Broussard to provide an update as well as get additional information on what he was planning. I did send a letter today on behalf of the board of the Kingsville Civic Association to each council member. I hope that you had a moment to read that. We do support this legislation that Councilman Marks is proposing. And for every reason that every resident has stated, you know, the purpose of the association is to preserve and protect the royal nature of Kingsville. And when Mr. Broussard came in and gave us his presentation last May, he misrepresented himself on several points. And when he returned to us in February and asked about those points, he brushed them aside. So, you know, this has nothing to do on a personal level. This has to do with the fact that we are concerned, the association is concerned about the amount of solar facilities within our direct area. And that is why we're supporting this legislation. And then as a resident of Kingsville, I support the legislation. I've lived there for 48 years. My grandparents purchased the current house I live in and bought from them 70 years ago. So as a resident, I also support this legislation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Patricia Fallon, who was here in person.
She has something about 19 as well. Is that, you're speaking on solar farm?
1825 and 1925.
Oh, okay, okay. I didn't know if it was a mistake because it had both. You're just going to hit that green button there that turns on the area.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chairman Ertel and council members. I'm Patricia Fallon. I'm the secretary of the Hanover Road Association, and we strongly support Bills 1825, the amendment to 1825, which I'll discuss, and 1925. 1825, the distance of solar facilities. We strongly support 1825 to not allow solar facility to be located within 1,000 feet of another property with an existing solar facility or another property for which a petition for special exception. And everything I've heard is the reasons why. I mean, the fact that 2 right there near people's homes is not only reduction in property value, but the enjoyment people have of their lifestyle there really does decrease. Additionally, we support the proposed amendment to Bill 1825, which I've discussed both with Councilman Marks and Councilman Koch, and hopefully it will be raised with the council to not allow a solar facility to be located within 1,000 feet of a residential property. And I have some examples here of what has happened on Route 30, where these solar facilities have literally been right in people's front yards. There are very few restrictions in Baltimore County law on the placement and locations of solar facilities in residential communities. Current law allows solar facilities to be placed as close as 30 feet from adjacent residential properties or 50 feet, causing great turmoil and dissatisfaction in the communities, as well as a reduction in property values. The amendment to Bill 1825 provides a long overdue protection to residential property owners that are adjacent to solar facilities. One example is the Hanover Pike Solar. That's 1/2 mile north of my house. That particular solar farm is located within 100 feet of several residential properties along Hanover Pike. I attached pictures with a letter that I sent to each one of the council members yesterday. The first picture does show, they took it, they actually sent a letter, the Isaacs, Carol and Richard Isaac. This is their backyard. The picture's right there. You can see it's not even small. The solar panels aren't even small. They're huge right next to their backyard. That is attached. And they sent a letter of how that has affected their home and property value. Also, there's a second attachment to another solar farm, which is a 1/2 mile down the other side of my house, which I'm not really the issue. I feel bad for the people there. The solar farm is right next to their house. Attachment 2 in the letter that I also sent to the council is a picture of Woodensburg Ells Road SGC solar facility on Hanover Pike. It is located 30 feet from the property line and 75 feet from the front of the home. And if you look at the picture, it is unbelievable. I hope you all see it. I sent you a color version. I just hope you look at it. They literally, when they look out the front of their house, that is all they see. And it's amazing. I agree with one of the other speakers that someone would even do that. They don't live on the property. They just bought the property for the specific purpose of putting a solar farm on there. And then it's in the middle of 7 other homes. So it's has really affected our community. It's in front of, actually, it's right in front, 75 feet of 3 different homes, and then adjacent to 4 additional homes. These are homes like in a cul-de-sac, just kind of like this other story. They bought the 19 acres in the middle, stuck a solar farm in there, and it has really affected that entire community in our neighborhood. These residents spent thousands of dollars fighting the construction of the solar facility to no avail. And I will share a story. The Ells Road SGC solar facility reached an agreement with these local residents in exchange for their silence, that they would not voice complaints about the solar facility. And in exchange, they said, okay, we'll provide some more tree buffering, and then we won't develop any more solar facilities on the Ells Road property next to some other residents' homes. That's strong arming. So we have residents dealing with that, loss of property value, loss of their lifestyle in their neighborhoods. These are the kinds of things that are happening in these neighborhoods. So the HRA strongly supports the protection of residential properties with a distance of at least 1,000 feet from adjacent solar facilities and the protection of local residents' property values. This will help reduce the huge community opposition that you're hearing about today to these solar facility projects, as well as the strained interface between communities and the solar development companies. Additionally, it will reduce the incidence of solar companies using strong-arm tactics aimed at local residents to silence their opposition to solar facilities within a community. I would also like to say that we are in complete support of the protection of the ERDL, that's Bill 1925, Baltimore County Farmland Preservation Act. We support the way it's written, that it would require a majority +1 and the consent of the local district, the local council member. I'm also the chairman of the Baltimore County Republican Party, and I will say that we met and we unanimously agree with these 3 bills and the amendment 1825 to protect the residents of Baltimore County. I hope that you all will consider these bills, and thank you for consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Fallon. Ms. Belcastro, next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Matthew Myers, who is on virtually. Mr. Myers, you may unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Good afternoon, Mr. Myers.
Good afternoon, Council Chair, good afternoon, members of the County Council, and thank you for the time to speak today. Thank you also to all of my neighbors who are attending in person. My name is Matthew Myers. I'm a resident of Councilmember Marx's district and a neighbor of Ms. Hooper and the others with you today. And I am speaking in favor of the proposed bill. I believe it is a reasonable measure that will prevent multiple independent solar projects from overwhelming small communities, particularly in cases like this one where private property owners are seeking special exceptions to current zoning in order to develop solar farms, not to develop by right. I am not opposed to responsible solar farm development, particularly in large scale and where responsibly located. I'm also very sensitive to the rights of private property owners. However, closely clustered solar projects, especially of smaller scale, could significantly impact neighboring residents. As shown in the map distributed by my neighbors, we have multiple facilities within an approximate quarter-mile radius. I have two important examples of the adverse impact to neighboring residents. As my neighbors have testified, multiple projects in close proximity breaks up the residential fabric of a community. Imposing a proximity limitation prevents individual residents or small clusters of residential owners from inadvertently finding themselves surrounded by power production infrastructure developed by multiple independent firms. Second, multiple projects in close proximity creates cumulative stormwater runoff impacts like flooding and erosion that are detrimental to neighboring residential properties. The site plan I have seen for our neighborhood does not appear to protect my property from the inevitable stormwater runoff. I believe that this bill is reasonable protection for individual residents and small communities from overdevelopment of solar farm infrastructure and power production facilities, and I am in favor of its passage. Thank you for your consideration and for your service to Baltimore County.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Mr. Councilman Patoka, sorry, it looks like you have a question.
I do have a comment, Mr. Chair, and I was thinking about what Ms. Fallon said, and she made some interesting points. And but I was a little bit disturbed by your last comment, Ms. Fallon, related to being chair of the Baltimore County Republican Party. I'll tell you why. I appreciate your political activism. One thing that I enjoy about the county council is county council members are encouraged to have individuals. It's one of the few legislative bodies where individual thought is encouraged. And so we work in a bipartisan fashion on a regular basis. And usually the issues that come before us, we evaluate on the merit of the issue. I think when we start to define our political affiliation or activity with a political party, it starts to muddy the waters in terms of how we evaluate the merit of a proposal that comes before us. So my suggestion to you would be to, make your comment. I think that it doesn't serve the evaluation of the issue well to then define your political affiliation and your enthusiasm for that political affiliation. Let me finish, because all of a sudden there's a whole new metric, a whole new piece of data that goes into the metric. We are all, we choose our politics, but I feel like this is the one, we take the county council takes a lot of body blows and punishment from the public and criticism from the public because we do have individual thought. We don't have to follow one particular member or the other unless we feel that what they are bringing forward has value to the evaluation. And so for me, I just think this whole new metric of, well, is this a Democrat issue or is it a Republican issue? We start to try to figure that out. And to me, it defeats arguments on either side. And so that's just my comment on that. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. Any other items on 1825? Councilman Marks, you good? All right, we'll move
Mr.
on.
Chairman,
Yep,
Mr.
yeah, yes, Councilman Ketch.
Yeah, I'd like to be a co-sponsor.
Okay. Secretary, you got that?
Noted.
Okay. Thank you, everyone who came in to testify on this. And there's another work session 2 weeks if anybody else wanted to testify one way or the other. And then we're on to Bill 1925, which is also lead sponsor. Councilman Marks, did you want to introduce it and talk about it?
This legislation formalizes a process within the charter upon approval by the voters for adjusting the urban-rural demarcation line. Since its adoption, the URDL has been a successful tool for regulating land use, protecting agriculture, and preserving the quality of our 3 northern reservoirs, which supply clean water to 1.8 million people. This amendment requires any adjustment to undergo review by the Planning Board and approval by a majority +1 of the County Council, as well as support from the council member where the adjustment is proposed. I would like to thank the many organizations that have already supported the bill. You're going to hear from a few today, including the Essex Middle River Civic Council, the Sparks Glencoe Community Planning Council, the Greater Kingsville Civic Association, and others. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any comments from the members, or do we want to try to get right to the speakers and then maybe interlace it? Or Councilman Young, you look like you want to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So appreciate the conversation leading up to the legislation. And I know we've had some conversations one-on-one. Best way to, I guess I'm trying to figure out here from the title of the bill, excuse me, the amendment to the charter, the Baltimore County Farmland Preservation Act. There were a lot of questions associated with when was the last time we moved the URDL, when was the last time the URDL was moved, or what actions have actually been taken to lead to the necessity of trying to pass a charter amendment to then inject the council into a process that we currently have not been involved with. Because I believe that the answer that was found was that the council has never moved the URDL because the URDL itself doesn't provide an opportunity for the council to move anything. There is no vote process for the URDL to be moved. Knowing that, I guess I'm trying to figure out from adding this amendment that would now require or provide an opportunity for the council to vote on the movement of the URDL. How are we protecting farmland? How are we preserving farmland in the sense that it's already been working, and you and I have already talked about this too. Some folks have referred to it as sacrosanct, and it's been in place for almost 60 years, and the council has never had a role to play in voting on the moving of it or an active role in making that decision. It's all been in the planning board, and it has moved very little, barely at all, except for in 1974 when 58,000 acres were removed from the URDL to make it smaller. So I guess I'm trying to figure out at what point does this amendment, if it were to pass, preserve farmland more so than it's being preserved or has been preserved over the last 60 years?
If you look at the recently completed task force that former County Executive Olszewski put together to look at agriculture in this county, one of the recommendations involves strengthening the URDL, which I think this does. I think this provides greater safeguards to make sure that we are not capriciously moving the URDL. It formalizes the planning board's involvement in the process. It opens up the process to the public. The public will get to testify at any point in the stage. I think it helps certainly better fortify what has been a very important land preservation tool in Baltimore County, one that is nationally renowned. You say, what has changed? Well, what has changed is that a lot of the land within the URDL has been exhausted. So in my opinion, we should be extra vigilant about making sure that resources go into the land inside the URDL. An objective, by the way, which is complementary to the master plan, which we all voted for.
Right. I'm glad you brought up the master plan, because within the master plan, there was original documents that came from, I guess, the planning board that made a suggestion for reviewing of the URDL, which, depending on what side you were on, somebody could see review as somehow attempting to weaken or somehow attack where a review of a document that's not a document, but a policy that's been in place for 60 years that has been effective. We removed that from the version of the master plan that came from the planning board. So we didn't have a chance. I mean, part of this conversation has led to information that we didn't have prior to you asking or drafting this piece of legislation, which I appreciate you doing because, listen, I also want to thank the council staff for the draft notes that they put together related to the ERDL history behind it, where it came from and where it actually exists. Because at the moment, the ERDL doesn't exist in code anywhere. It was created by the planning board back in 1967 and then formalized in terms of a definition by the council 2 years later, or later that year. Forgive me if I'm getting the dates wrong. But it exists in name in the zoning regulations. There's no law, there's no code related to the ERDL. And yet it has still played a role in protecting rural legacy and protecting, I'd say, open space as well as land that falls outside of it without our interjection into it. This has all been going on for 60 years. I'm trying to figure out what is the necessary urgency, especially with new information that we're aware of, because when we were talking about this before, we were saying that a supermajority of the council would be necessary because it would only take 4 votes in order to move it. But that was inaccurate because there is no voting process for the council to move the ERDL. It's determined by zoning and it's determined by the planning board, which is a public body and has public hearings that allows for folks to weigh in and share information. It also doesn't have rule of law related to any decision we make from the CZMP process, where if we move a zone or we decide as a council or individuals as a council to change the zone of something that's outside the ERDL, that should be a zone that's inside of it. That then leaves it to the planning board to move it in consultation and in public debate and discussion with the public and us if we choose to participate with them. I see these safeguards and I still ask the question, like, what is the impetus for doing this now? Because like you said, it's award-winning, it's renowned around the country, maybe even the world, in terms of when they refer to rural legacy and trying to preserve land. And it's been working effectively. Why are we interjecting ourselves into that process when I don't see the threat, and help me find it, because I know that the folks have anecdotally talked about what they want to see and what they're concerned about related to what you had said too. Large swaths of land to then be developed necessarily inside the ERDL right now don't seem to be there. But it's already protected by the way that the ERDL is without us being involved in that process. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with us being involved with it. I'm just trying to figure out the urgency for this and to create something in the code, not just the code, in the charter, referencing the ERDL, which doesn't exist in code. And I guess the main question was, why? What is the urgency to do this when it doesn't seem to make sense with what's currently on the books?
So you can say, why do it now? Well, we just had an hour-long discussion about solar facilities. And during that discussion, people complained, well, you're just reacting to something. We're being proactive. I mean, there's a lot of us who feel the ERDL is under threat, that there's various interests that are interested in busting the ERDL. And that's the impetus behind this legislation. Throw it to the voters. The voters can always turn this down, but at least get this idea out there proactively so we're talking about it. And putting in safeguards to making sure that this system, which you said very accurately has worked for half century, continues to work.
Right. And sorry, Mr. Chairman, if just back and forth. You mentioned it too, and which astutely, the role to play and also what we've been doing to protect it. And we're referencing and talking about the ERDL as the legal thing that's protecting the land, but based on the information that's presented from the council and from the auditors, that the Metro line is the legal codified line and mechanism to determine sewage and water usage, which the Metro line is in some cases larger or further out than the ERDL is. And there's also it's been acting as the urban growth boundary since its creation. But those are things that are actually codified where the ERDL isn't. So I'm trying to marry up these things that are mechanisms that are already in place in code to protect our space and rural legacy land, which is also, since the ERDL was created in the 60s, has now its own designation for rural legacy and rural protection outside the URL on top of the fact that the URL exists. So I'm all of these mechanisms, all of these protections, I'm trying to see the value in injecting the council into these things.
The council, as someone who's been here for 15 years, the council often operates based on traditions that aren't codified. Councilmanic courtesy is not codified. Now, we generally observe that, but requiring that the council member who represents an area affected by this support the change, I think that's an important step forward. Regarding the Metro service, I would be happy to change this legislation to look at Metro service if you or other people wanted to.
Right.
I'm happy to look at that.
So the language itself, as you mentioned it earlier too, would require not only the support of a supermajority, but also the council member in which the change was happening. Right. So as you mentioned, councilmanic courtesy, this would codify not in code, but in the charter, not a concept of councilmanic courtesy, but would make it required through the charter that there would be a role for councilmanic courtesy to play in the moving of this uncodified line.
Yes.
Codifying councilmanic courtesy.
Yeah, codifying the support of the council member in whose district this is located in the charter.
So if knowing the council will grow, theoretically 9 members could vote in favor of something, the line moving. But if one member voted against it and their district was subject to the change, then those 8 other votes would not count.
That council member faces the voters. The other 8 people don't.
Right.
Right.
But in terms of growth, I'm just saying from a standpoint of we here having we would not have an equal vote in this process. The person and the council member that represents the area in which there would be a change to the URL would have more weight in terms of their vote than the other 8 members.
I wouldn't look at it that way.
Sure.
I would say that the home council member has the power given to him or her by the voters to look out for the interests of that area.
Right.
I think that's important.
And let's also, this is all hypothetical. I don't even know the situation where that would happen. I'm just from a standpoint of the way the bill's drawn and written. The implication of putting it in the charter is troublesome, but I think I've made that clear in our other conversations as well. I know I've been taking up a minute, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I think Councilman Jones had something to say as well.
Councilman Jones.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Councilman Marks, I'm reminded of a term where they say, let sleeping dogs lie. The URL has been successful. I live outside of the URL. I support maintaining the URL, and the URL has worked just fine. I'm afraid that by bringing up this bill, by, number one, trying to put it on the charter, put it in the charter, it's going to create debate, and who knows what may happen if people look at the URL and decide that, now that you bring it up, maybe we don't want it. Because clearly there are more people that live inside the URL that live outside the URL. So the people that live inside the URL may not necessarily be so concerned about the URL. So I'm not sure this is a good idea to bring this before the voters. Secondly, when I think about the future, I don't want to tie the hands of a future planning board, a future planning, a future director of planning, a future county executive, or a future county council who may, at some point in the far distant future, I hope, and I hope it never happens, that may be torn between what are we going to do, and I don't want to make the burden or the rock that heavy for them to lift. If they decide that, we need to extend the URL just a little bit. So I'm not so sure it's a good idea to even bring up the idea of the URL right now, because it's been working fine. No one has any interest of tampering with it. Why put it in front of the voters when clearly the majority of the citizens live inside the URL?
Councilman Jones, are you saying that the voters can't make an informed decision on this?
No, what I'm saying is if we bring this before the voters, when there's no issue with the ERDL right now, we may end up getting a result that we may not like. Because I think right now the ERDL is working fine. And second of all, I don't think we should be, every time something is important to us, that we should go into the charter and change the charter. I mean, the charter is our constitution here in Baltimore County, and we should be very careful before we start changing it on things that are important to us. Because in this particular case, there is no problem. And number two, we could pass a law tomorrow that says that the county council has to vote for any changes to the ERDL. Why do we have to put it in, on a charter?
Because it could be overturned by another council. Councilman Jones, I was the sponsor of the legislation approved by the voters that created the Charter Review Commission. And I think that's a very good mechanism. I ended up agreeing with the majority on this council and pulled back the legislation last month dealing with the vacancies on the council. I listened to you all. But I'm hoping that the Charter Review Commission will look at that issue because I think it's still important. I will tell you that the sanctity, the importance of the ERDL, I believe, is of such a critical degree that it does belong on the charter. I think we can have a robust debate among the voters. If the voters turn this down, we're back to the status quo, right? If this goes before the voters, they reject it, we're back to the status quo. But this council will have done its job in looking ahead and not just reacting.
Mr. Chairman, but we all agree, though, that the status quo when it comes to the ERDL has been effective in its original goals, right?
No,
we can agree on
we
that.
don't agree on that.
We don't agree that the ERDL for the last 60 years has been effective in its original goals.
When the chair calls on me, I'll make.
No worries, gotcha. But just, you mentioned about codifying, and I understand that, which is also sort of my issue that we've talked about. Because if we're talking about preserving rural legacy and preserving land, which was one of the three goals from the original purpose of the ERDL, this doesn't codify the ERDL, it codifies the council's role in moving it, but still leaves the ERDL at risk inside, not in the county code, but in the zoning regulations and from a planning board perspective. It's being included consistently from master plan to master plan and referenced because it was created by the planning board. And we have it in our zoning regulations as something to reference, but it doesn't have active law, it doesn't have power of law. But we're codifying in your amendment to the charter our role in moving something that only exists in the regulations, which could be removed from a council. And I think I opened it up, and correct me and just confirm that I said, let's talk about ways to identify and clarify how we can protect rural legacy and rural land. We did talk about that. So I'm open to that discussion, but it still goes back to there's this inconsistency with what this amendment does and what currently is being utilized that incorporates the ERDL in this land preservation piece. Because it's not just the ERDL. We keep saying the ERDL, but it's about the metro line. It's about the urban growth boundaries. It's about the rural legacy areas that didn't exist when the ERDL was created. All of this is part of it, and we're only talking about the ERDL, which clearly, from the conversations that have happened with all of us here, we've sort of been enlightened a bit about the original purpose and where it exists in law, which it doesn't. But it still has guided for 60 years our growth effectively. And if we're going to change that in the charter, I think it deserves a considerable discussion beyond just the 2 work sessions that we have here. I say that,
I'm open to the discussion.
Understood, appreciate it.
I know Councilman Crandall wants to say something, and I'll get to you in a second. I just wanted to make 2 observations here. Councilman Young, while you say that the ERDL is not codified in law, where it does exist in law is that in the 70s, we created RC districts, and the RC districts are really the teeth of where the ERDL exists because it lays out what you can do on those, in those areas. And one of my fears is that at some point, with a lot of influence from different individual interests out there who want to develop, a future council may be talked into without considerable discussion, as you say, because if we're going to need a supermajority to change this, they could technically take one of the RC designations, and I'll use the example of RC2. We as a council could say, you know what, we're not going to have RC2 anymore. We're going to make it all DR16. And from that point on, you can build apartments where there was currently RC2, where you can only develop on one house per 2 acres or something. The other thing that Councilman Jones brought up about what, people who are not in the ERDL or outside the ERDL, why would they be concerned about this? The biggest thing that we all need is drinkable water, and our reservoirs are in the ERDL. So we have Pretty Boy, we have Liberty, and we have Loch Raven. If the salt content or the chemical content that goes into those waterways are ruined, we are done as a region. There's no drinking water. So there's a distinct reason to preserve that way of life. I'm not saying it's going to be changed, but people have been talked into all kinds of things about, everything's different now. We have different ways to filter the water before it gets to the reservoirs. This isn't necessarily a bad thing to have more scrutiny on changes that potentially could be made, but that's merely my opinion. Councilman Crandall?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think that you spoke to a couple of things that I was going to mention. I'm going to disagree with my colleagues, Councilman Young and Councilman Jones. I just want to remind everyone that our land use authority, as far as the Baltimore County Council goes, is under attack. And the General Assembly is once again this year looking at legislation that would restrict the council's land use authority in our own districts. And so I really don't see anything wrong with formalizing how we would change something that we said it. I think what we do agree is that the ERDL has worked quite well. However, times change. It was created 60, 70 years ago, but times have changed, and the advocacy for opening up Baltimore County rural areas to development, that whole movement has changed. So the council should be looking for ways to wrest control over our land use authority granted to us by the charter. And I really don't see anything wrong with us strengthening our position. Mrs. Belcastro, I sent you a link. I think you guys, can you share that, the map of the ERDL? Sorry to put you on the spot. So this is off of the Baltimore County's website, which shows the urban rural demarcation line, and you can see that each one of our districts falls within and outside of the ERDL. And I want you to take a look at the areas outside of the ERDL, and I'll submit to you that these are the areas that make Baltimore County such a diverse and an interesting place to live. Is that we have farmland, we have agricultural land, we have forest, we have waterfront. We are a very unique municipality in this country, and when different advocates want to start looking at building outside of this line, you're taking away the very character that is Baltimore County. we just heard folks testify, about Mount Vista Park. It's a beautiful place. We're also faced with pressure from housing advocates that want to build both within and outside of the URDL. However, we also have a school overcrowding issue. We have an infrastructure issue. So if we don't wrest control of this line, it could very easily, under leadership that maybe none of us agree with, but under leadership in the future, where we're now building outside of the URDL with no infrastructure resources to support such development. So I think we need to be very careful with it, and I don't see any problem with us exercising more control over the URDL and making it moving the line one way or the other, making it a very open and transparent before the council process with all the scrutiny that moving that line deserves. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Councilman Young. Oh, Councilman Patoka, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
No worries. So I know that my colleagues know this, but I'm just going to say it for folks that are listening online or that are here this evening. So my colleagues know that before becoming a council member that I spent most of my career as a professional planner. I keep my credentials up. I'm nationally certified as a planner. And like I said, my credentials are up to date. And in my profession, the URDL is a national model on managing land and working to offset the impacts of development. And so to me, it's kind of like everything that I was trained for during my undergraduate school, during my graduate school, during my days at Baltimore City Planning, during my days at Baltimore County Planning. I did spend 3 weeks at state planning, but that was just a honeymoon and left. But the URDL has been a state model, a national model, and it's because we've done it right. And so now, I think it's okay for the council to be an active participant in this. And I think what Councilman Marks is suggesting here is that we're not spectators on the sideline, that we are active participants in the things that happen in Baltimore County. We took criticism for this when the master plan was finally came before the council, albeit 3-4 years late. The council dug in. My colleagues here, we rolled up our sleeves. We went page after page. I know personally I read it from page 1 to page last. But I did see my colleagues rolling up their sleeves and commented for it. We were criticized to some degree for not just being a spectator and rubber stamping it as it was submitted to us. We gave it thought, and I think this is thoughtful again. We have to be careful with what we do. We may very well, and this is where I disagree with you, Councilman Young, we may well all have very well already violated the URDL. And why do I say we violated the URDL? Is we control land use through the comprehensive zoning map process, the CZMP. We do this once every 4 years where we do this comprehensive zoning map process. We kind of leave it up to, at least my experience, I've done 2 CZMPs as a council member. I did 1 CZMP as Deputy Director of Planning for Baltimore County. But the reason I say we may have already violated it is because we rely on councilmatic courtesy. That's not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because a council member should know more about his or her district if that's the district they represent. They should know all the nooks and crannies of the district. They should know the sentiment of the district. They should know the people. They should know the feelings of the district and then make a decision based on that. So how does that get to an URDL violation that we may have done over the past few CZMP cycles? So typically, council members are working with their respective communities. They're making decisions based on that work with their respective communities. But at the end of the process, when we're all voting on the entire county's districts, we start with District 1 and with District 7. That'll go from District 1 to District 9 in the future. We rely on that council member to make land use decisions, land use changes, zoning changes. And so, for example, if there were a higher density use that typically is inappropriate outside of the URDL, and the council member supports that high density use outside of the URDL, and the other 6 members, and in the future, the other 8 members may not be aware that there was an URDL violation, that we had high density, a DR type of zoning outside of the URDL where it's inappropriate. We may not know that. And so when we come in and Secretary is doing diligent work to call out each number, and at that point, we don't even know the geography of each number because it's kind of a, what's the right word, Tom, for it? It's an exhaustive process. And I'm willing to wager a nickel, if anybody wants to take me on, a nickel. I think I want to check with Ms. Madigan, but I want to make sure that that's appropriate.
De minimis.
In the past, that we might have done it, where we might have made unknowingly changed the zoning of an area outside the URDL into a higher density zone that's inappropriate. Now, it's not an actual movement of the line, but it's a de facto movement of the line because we're allowing a higher density zone in an area that's inappropriate for a higher density zone. So it's something to be researched. And again, I have a nickel on the line here. But I think it's an important fact. And so what I would suggest, I don't know if this is an amendment or I think if we could, and maybe I'll ask the staff to research this, if there's a way to flag during the CZMP process, if a zoning decision made by any member becomes a de facto URDL violation, if the other members could be made aware of that. And then we would vote on having full knowledge of whether there is an URDL violation or not. And so, because I think right now, I think we vote on it. We have this marathon process where we're voting on numbers. But if we know that we may be voting on an URDL violation, then that's information that I certainly as a council member want to know before I vote. And so, you know, we could strive to become Shrewsbury or New Freedom, Pennsylvania. But is that what we want to be? And I will stop with that question.
You're going to get yourself in trouble again with those.
Yeah, well, at least that's.
Can you compare something to Glen Burnie?
did.
Yeah, stay away from it.
Okay. So with that, I will stop, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Patoka, can you just clarify, I mean, you kept referencing an URDL violation. Can you define what you're talking about?
I would say a DR zone out in an area that's outside the URDL that is more appropriate for an RC zone.
Gotcha. So you're saying a violation of what?
It's the violation of the concept of having higher density inside the URDL and lower density outside the URDL.
Right.
Concept, which we all voted on and approved during our review of the master plan.
Right. But what you're saying is, because there is no
De facto violation.
Fair enough.
There's not like a demerit that you get, but it's a de facto violation that we as elected officials should not be doing. But we should be aware of it if we're doing it, and then if we're aware of it, to just strive not to do that.
Just to clarify, the violation you're saying, which there is no legal basis for the URDL, it's a baseline, which also exists outside the URDL. You're saying that the line that is currently the URDL, which we don't play a role in moving, but in terms of zoning, which we have legal control over, the line can't be moved or shouldn't be moved, or are you saying it should
I
be
think
moved
that
before
we as
zoning?
council members should not be spectators. And I think that's what Councilman Marks is trying to do, is he's trying to, instead of being on the sidelines and watching what's going on, he wants us, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman Marks, he wants us to have a direct role in where that line is and how it moves.
That's fine. I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand what a hurdle violation is, because generally, if you're saying that you zone something that shouldn't be outside the hurdle, but also
I'm saying
our
it's a
zoning
de
process
facto-
has multiple
de facto
departments
or-
that also make a determination and make a recommendation of whether we do it or don't do it. And the final decision comes to us to say yes. So if the planning board and the planning department said yes to something, the council member has the final say in changing a zone. And if we wanted to change it, whatever we could, it's within our prerogative to do so. You're saying that you're defining a zoning, a hurdle violation as a zone that shouldn't be outside the hurdle. I guess I'm trying to figure out from that standpoint, when and how does the hurdle move as it currently exists? And even with the new bill or the new amendment, how would that process work in terms of moving there? Because the way you explained it made it sound like the hurdle should never move whenever or ever.
What I'm saying is not an actual movement of the line. I'm saying it's a de facto movement. What Councilman Marks is trying to do is trying to
Double or nothing.
is trying to make and Councilman Marks, please, I don't want to speak for you, but what I understand you're trying to do is allowing that to be a more formalized process. But to me, it's, if you are making land use decisions that are inconsistent with the concept of the ERDL, which we all voted on and approved through the master plan, then you are making a de facto violation of what this governing body approved back in January of 2024.
So just to also clarify my understanding from the planning board and also just the notes that were provided related to the ERDL, was the original intent was it was conceived and was intended to be fluctuating based on zoning changes, service capacity, as well as comprehensive plans, which you've referenced in your remarks, in terms of the zoning process, service capacity that is covered by a new, something else other than the ERDL, but also comprehensive plans that we have passed and that has gone through the council every 10 years. So, and Councilman Crandall, I just want to put out, interested in having a conversation with you after this work session, because this is the first one. I know I haven't had a chance to talk to you beforehand, so would love to just sit down and dialogue over some of the conversations I've had with some other folks and the other members.
Okay.
Glad to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Councilman Jones, did you have a comment or? Okay. Why don't we try to get to the speakers? Because otherwise we're gonna do a to be continued tomorrow night here for the rest of the work session. I'm gonna punish everyone. First speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly. Our first speaker is Nancy Hafford, who is here in person.
Ms. Hafford,
She's in the house.
how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Chairman?
Sorry, we're infringing on your,
That's okay. So I was looking at Facebook. I was fine. So good to see you all. Thank you so much for having me here today. And this is a very, very important discussion. As you know, I have served on the planning board since 2012, and we've had a lot of conversations about the ERDL. And in the master plan that we set forth, the last one, we recommended that we just take a look at it so people understand. So many people don't understand what the ERDL is. And Baltimore County is a lot different than it used to be years ago. We used to have 600,000 people here, and now we have over 800,000 people that live here. Inside the ERDL, about 10% live outside. And if we're gonna put a charter through, it would really be great if we do like other areas do, like Portland and Nashville that have demarcation lines. If we could just, like you were talking about studies, Councilman Crandall was talking about studies about the solar panels, and for other issues we do studies. It would be very helpful to the voters to understand the importance of the ERDL
and the demarcation line. And why we have it like that. And then maybe we can look at what we can do for our people that live in Baltimore County, our teachers, our police department, our fire department. And I've met so many others that can't live here anymore because they can't afford to live here. There's a property, I think, up in Mr. Councilman Crandall's office area that I heard is going to be a retirement community, 57 homes, and I thought, how wonderful. But then I heard they start at 800,000 to $1 million. So I just want us to be cognizant of our hardworking people here in Baltimore County and just say, if we're going to be firm on lines, could we at least take a look at why we're doing it? And can we really look at making some more affordable housing? And this is not about a developer. This is about human beings. And I don't even want to mention, no, I'm not going to mention it. Never mind. I'm not going to say that. So I just, I thank you so much for what you're doing. And I know your intent is good, but that's something that I hear all the time. You all know I live here in Towson. I live in front of the police department and the fire department, and I know the police, and it's not because they arrest me all the time, but it's just that I've gotten to know them. So I'm just saying, if we could just take a look at it, that's all I ask. And I have a letter that's signed by the chairman of the planning board, myself, and also the past chairman and delegate, Scott Phillips, for all of you, just asking that that could possibly happen. But thank you so much. We appreciate everything we do. We know you got a tough job there.
Councilman Jones.
Yes, Ms. Hafford, thank you so much for your thoughtful comments. Thank you for coming in and hanging out so long to be heard. So thank you.
I learned a lot.
Your comments make us better. Thank you for your service.
It's fun, huh?
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Councilman Marks? Councilman Jones, your remarks are concluded, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Nancy, and I think the world of you. And but did Mr. Halupka take a vote? Is he doing this in his individual capacity, or did he take a vote of the planning board?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with the plan.
Okay.
From my understanding, no.
Okay.
I think he was just saying his position.
Okay. And like I said, I think the world of you. You do great work for Towson. But when I was councilman for Towson for 12 years, we did target development into Towson. You and I worked on that, and it was not an easy process at times. When you bust the URDL, when you take the URDL larger, you are basically you potentially have less resources to focus on areas like Towson, areas like Essex, areas like Parkville.
Mm-hmm.
And money, we have a finite amount of money. So I'm just saying every decision we make here has a trade-off.
I totally understand. But as I said, not everybody, we're very fortunate because we understand working on the planning board, being a council member, we understand the URDL. But I think it would be helpful to voters if they understood. And, if there was a study, just like everything else, it's just more helpful for people to understand.
I think the voters do understand the URDL. I think anyone who drives up I-83 and looks at green, and then they know exactly when they hit Shrewsbury, Pennsylvania, they get that. That speaks 1,000 words, in my opinion.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I just want to add one comment, and this might be unwanted, but one of the things that we've seen in the Baltimore area, this is not necessarily for you, Nancy, but we've spent a long time as a region moving north as we don't like things that happen below us, so we keep moving north. And one of the things I see in the 6th district, and I have all inner Beltway neighborhoods, I have really, in certain places, very affordable home ownership opportunities. And we're seeing things like, because there's no controls, we're seeing people, I just had 2 homes in Overley. Overley is one of my hottest markets in my district, where we have young families, they can buy homes for around $300,000, which is cheap these days. But yet I had 2 really beautiful houses on a street. The homeowners were outbid by investors to turn them into group homes. 2. So they're not going to have families in them. There's no kids that are going to grow up there. There's no taxpayers that are going to pay. We keep doing that, and and the rumors we keep hearing are, you got to find a way to open up the Erdel. You got to find a way to build up north because we're dying as a county. And people believe that. There are people that believe that out there. And if anything, this discussion is something that maybe sheds some light on the whole issue of the way this county works. Because again, there's some really important points about what we have up north. We have true working farms that produce products. They're manufacturers, really, of vegetables, livestock, you name it. And also because of our water supply. But we really have got to tighten up as a region. Baltimore City did this and this is another hypocrisy. In the city, they don't talk about, well, we need more land to develop. They just go redevelop old land. But in Baltimore County, somehow we're like, well, we can't build and we can't do anything in Parkville or in Woodlawn anymore because we want to go north. And it's worrisome because we need to make sure we're taking care of our inner Beltway neighborhoods and neighborhoods close to the that have been developed to make them livable, so we're not pushing people north. And that might be totally off topic, but.
It's a fair point, Mr. Chair, because we've got to take care of our infrastructure and in our inner Beltway neighborhoods. I know in my communities, I have 2 54-inch sewer lines that one didn't have capacity, but it wasn't to satisfy the sewage load for the communities where these sewer lines were built. It was built to handle the sewage loads from northern parts of Baltimore County. So we need to address our infrastructure needs, I think, inside the Erdel, and you start to have a competing interest outside, and we're stretching the taxpayer dollar even thinner.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Young.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Marks, you mentioned about the voters being informed about this, and so trust the ability of our voters to then realize that there's a referendum and there's something that they need to vote on, and that would be put into the charter. I'm just pointing out that there's still clearly a misunderstanding, even up here, of what the Erdel is and what it isn't, because when it comes to infrastructure with water and with sewer, that isn't addressed by the Erdel. It's addressed by other states that have been created after the Erdel was in place. I was trying to point out that if we're going to codify a way to move the Erdel, that still won't address the infrastructure issues because that's covered by the Metro line, not the Erdel. I was making sure that we're very clear here.
I'm happy to look at any amendments that you offer that will hopefully get your support.
Right.
That will do that.
Gotcha. And so,
Mr. Chairman.
I just want to, because of the intent, all of the things that you're referencing about infrastructure and about appropriateness in and outside the Erdel and an urban versus a rural area are supposed to be factored into what I've read to be the intent of the Erdl. It's not supposed to be moved easily, and it hasn't been. And the most examples that were provided us have shown it retracting. In order for it to move right now requires those considerations to be considered by the planning board and the departments that are responsible for it in county government. It's not just a willy-nilly process. And that still stays in place. I'm just trying to make sure that we understand here that these pieces are protected in multiple levels, and the Erdl is what we have used as a catch-all for all of these things. And I just want to make sure we're pointing out, because we keep referencing it like it is the determining factor, where we move this or do this, then all of a sudden none of this is going to happen. And that's not the case. It's not the case in code, and it's not the case in the way that we rezone and rezone areas. I just wanted to make sure we point that out.
Thank you, Councilman Young. Councilman Ketch.
Yeah, thank you very much. As most of you know, Northern Baltimore County is in my district, and I had not planned to really speak about this particular bill this week, but I plan to do it 2 weeks from now. I just want to say that there's no question, none whatsoever, that there's a real push to move north. The York Road corridor, I'm told by developers all the time, is where there's the potential to make the most money. And I've been asked numerous times to help them move the Erdl. And of course, I've refused each and every time. So I think this discussion has been beneficial. And as I said, in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a lot more to say about this because it is a very complicated issue. And there's no doubt that if the Erdl is moved north, it will be at the expense of those areas south of the Beltway. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Ketch. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Angelo Otterbein, who is here in person.
How are you, sir? Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chairman and fellow councilmen. My name is Angelo Otterbein, and I'm here to voice strong support for Bill 1925, the Baltimore County Farmland Preservation Act, and would like to share two perspectives and a few pictures, which I think will be handed out. The first is in my role as the president of Sparks Glencoe Community Planning Council, which is an all-volunteer organization that represents hundreds of residents in North Baltimore County. Sparks Glencoe focuses on preserving and protecting the rural character of the area by encouraging land preservation and by protecting the reservoir watershed system. The reservoirs, the gunpowder, and the tributaries happen to be world-class trout streams because of their health, and these sources provide clean drinking water for all of Baltimore City. Without question, our best and most effective tool for preventing unnecessary development is the Erdl. Septic and wells are well documented in terms of capacity and provide a simple and highly effective safeguard for what can be developed and where. The second perspective is as a newly appointed member on Baltimore County's Commission on Tourism. In my meeting last week, they reviewed the effectiveness of recent marketing and advertising efforts in Virginia, Philadelphia, DC, and Pittsburgh for bringing families and young couples wanting to spend a day or weekend in the area. One central message for these campaigns was the outdoors and being able to quickly get into and explore the countryside. From a tourism standpoint, the synergy between the urban landscape and offerings of Baltimore City and the rural areas of Baltimore County, combined with the ability to get from one to the other in 20 minutes, is an incredibly unique asset. And this is made possible in no small part by the protection afforded by the Erdl. Finally, the Historical Society of Baltimore County provided me with a picture of Hunt Valley in 1965, which is barely recognizable from what it looks like today. It is unquestionable how fast development can happen and how irreversible it is. While a small incremental move of the Erdl may feel inconsequential, it never goes the other direction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nice to see you, Angela.
Ms. Belcastro, next speaker. Did you have a question, Councilman Jones? Yes.
Our next speaker is Renee Hamidi, who is here in person.
Good evening.
Well, good evening, gentlemen, Chairman Ertel, council members. I'm Renee Hamidi, representing Values Planning Council. I have 2 pages of very well-crafted comments. I even open with a joke. Takes 2 minutes flat, but all of the information has been covered already. We talked about the cost of the infrastructure and how the people inside the URDL benefit from all of our tax dollars that are spent on infrastructure there. We talked about the water, how important it is to have clean drinking water. I'm not sure anybody mentioned forested areas that clean the air. We talked about farmland, besides fresh food, provides thousands of jobs, ecosystems and habitat for plants and animals, the sense of place. You can go take a bike ride. You can see horses grazing. You can go to a pick your own farm. We take those things for granted maybe, but they're blessings. And if you spend time in other places, you realize that's rare, and we are blessed. So I'm going to skip over all that other stuff, and I want to address a question that Councilman Young asked. He said the URDL is working just fine, so why now, right? What's happening? Why do we have to talk about it now? At Values Planning Council, which has been around for even longer than the URDL, I have a joke that our before and after pictures look the same. I don't have pictures of puppies and orphans to show people. I have pictures of, hopefully, not Hunt Valley. I have pictures of a field that looks the same as when their grandparents, ran across it 100 years ago. When you live in a place and it's always looked the same since you were a little kid, you tend to think, oh, well, it's always looked the same. It's never going to change. It's always going to look the same. You don't know how hard Values Planning Council and other people have to work to keep it looking the same, right? That's a fight we have to fight every day. There's a saying in the business, developer, when a developer loses a piece of land, he goes and finds another piece. When we lose a piece of land as preservationists, it's gone forever. It never comes back. So I don't want anybody to get complacent and think, well, what's the big deal? The URDL's worked perfectly fine, even though, as you point out, it's not exactly codified, right? Like, that was interesting to realize, oh no, I can't actually find it anywhere. I would like to point out that voters need to be educated. I don't have a problem with telling people what the URDL is. I will say I am not a stupid person. I am not uneducated. I lived in Sparks, Maryland for many years before I knew that there was an URDL. I knew when I drove up York Road the first time, I didn't even know I was still in Maryland, because all of a sudden everything opens up, it's beautiful countryside. People don't know what the URDL is, and they don't know how it benefits them. They don't know they have clean drinking water, in Catonsville, because of what's happening or not happening in northern Baltimore County. So I think knowledge is power, and I think if we need to educate the voters ahead of a vote on the county charter, I am all for it.
Any questions for Ms. Hamidi? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Our next speaker. Our next speaker is Alice Chalmers, who is here in person.
Where it comes from, up north. Yeah, but all that water's piped down. That's piped down from Liberty.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Elise Chalmers, and I'm also a member of the Baltimore County Ag Advisory Board. I also request that you vote to approve the Baltimore County Farmland Preservation Act that strengthens the URDL. I will be repeating a few things that have been said because I think they're important. Please consider maintaining this URDL as it keeps the cost of public services down. Expanding the area inside the URDL by pushing it into rural land requires more water, sewer, schools, fire, police, and other public investments, as opposed to redeveloping areas where this infrastructure already exists. Urban planners all confirm, you've said it yourselves, you want to concentrate mixed-use development around transportation, optimize convenience, not spread it over many miles. Those are the mistakes that were made in the 60s through the early 21st centuries that have created unmanageable urban sprawl throughout the United States. As we are in a budget-conscious time, note that farms and open land unambiguously provides a net fiscal benefit to the county. Owners of agricultural land actually pay more in local taxes than the government spends in supporting of those lands and the people who live and work on them. Although agricultural land generates less tax revenue per acre, it requires fewer public services such as schooling, road maintenance, and policing. 20 years of cost of community services studies, I'm sure that you've seen by the American Farmland Trust, show that for every dollar contributed by open space receives less than 1/3 in public services than housing developments for every dollar they contribute. Agriculture subsidizes the cost of residential development. Are we ready to significantly increase the area of land that receives increased public services, or do we want to create efficiencies by better managing our urban areas? Repeating a little bit what you said, but in another way. Finally, most of the land above the Erdl is either protected in an agricultural priority zone or protects our reservoirs, so moving the Erdl is not only uneconomical, it is short-sighted because it would mean directly sacrificing our food and water production and protection. Have we already forgotten the lessons of the pandemic to have sovereignty over our water and food sources, especially critical today as the nation is moving towards less economic dependency on other countries? We need to have our own food source. Baltimore County has unique advantages, we've said it, in that it encapsulates not only vibrant urban, suburban, and business communities, but it also has a successful agricultural economy and open space that benefits all residents. Please also remember that virgin soil, topsoil, is where all vegetation grows. Once it is gone, it takes several hundred years of decomposition to recreate. We are running out of topsoil in this country at an alarming rate. We should be treating our non-built infrastructure, our agricultural land, our wetlands, our woodlands, as the precious, irreplaceable resource that it is. Houses are replaceable, topsoil is not. Finally, to the questions that were brought up today, very thoughtful questions on why do it now. Again, if you agree that it is a successful planning tool recognized nationally, why would you not do it now? Why would you not protect it and maintain it and create a better maintenance for it? That is my question to you. I would also point to the fact that there is so much potential within the Erdl to redevelop. Look across other regions. Look in Europe, where the density of population is much larger than in Baltimore County. The potential to do something novel, innovative in design inside Baltimore County to account for the housing shortage, affordable housing, is, I think, huge. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Next speaker is Josh Sines. Mr. Sines, you are online. You may unmute yourself and begin your testimony.
Good evening, Chairman Ertel and members of the County Council. On behalf of the Essex Middle River Civic Council, representing 24 communities, I'm here to express our support for Bill 1925, the Baltimore County Farmland Preservation Act. Our organization represents the interests of the Essex and Middle River communities, and we firmly believe that preserving our county's farmland and open space is not only an investment in our agricultural heritage, but also a crucial step toward revitalizing long overlooked communities like some of ours. For decades, new development has pushed further into Baltimore County's rural areas, while older communities like Essex have struggled with disinvestment, vacant properties, and aging infrastructure. This pattern of unchecked suburban expansion drains resources from established neighborhoods, leaving them behind as attention and funding shift elsewhere. By limiting development on raw land, we can create stronger incentive for reinvestment in places inside the Beltway where infrastructure already exists and revitalization is desperately needed. Redirecting growth inward toward underutilized commercial corridors, vacant lots, and aging housing stock will strengthen our local economy, support small businesses, and improve the quality of life for current residents. Encouraging redevelopment in Essex instead of unchecked sprawl will allow the county to make better use of its resources, ensuring that taxpayer dollars go toward modernizing existing communities rather than extending infrastructure further into undeveloped areas. Preserving open space and refocusing development where it is most needed are not opposing goals. They are complementary strategies for responsible land use. By passing Bill 1925, the County Council will not only protect valuable agricultural land, but also send a clear message that revitalizing historic communities inside the Beltway is a priority. We urge you to support this legislation and help guide Baltimore County towards a more sustainable and equitable future. Thank you for your time and your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Sines.
I'll be very brief. Thank you, Mr. Sines, for your very thoughtful comments. I'm glad you testified because I think there's often this impression that Middle River is largely built out, but in fact, it's not, correct?
That's correct. It's getting closer and closer by the day, and that closer and closer is the Erdl line. I think it's a little bit overlooked tonight in the conversation of these pockets that we have down here that are outside the Erdl. We have several: Foley's Quarters, Back River Neck Peninsula, down the Bird River. But one thing I would point out is, you know, in the past 20 years, we've had a 50% population increase in Middle River, but we haven't had a 50% population increase in the DPW trucks or our EMS or the police. Actually, some of those numbers are lower now than they were 20 years ago. And every time we do this, we are taking resources away from Essex and the heart of Middle River. I'll tell you right now, I plowed this past year. We have less plow trucks right now on those roads down there than we did 15 years ago. And each time we take a piece of raw land, especially trying to push on the Erdl outside of it, we are taking away those resources. There's only so many resources in the county. I mean, how many of you had water main breaks this year? We've had dozens down here. We didn't even have a cold winter to have that. I don't think we should be looking at any new infrastructure going in outside of that Erdl, but before we look at the infrastructure inside the Erdl.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Julie Young, who is here in person. He's not on. Bear with me one moment. He's not on. Tim Brook-Filbert was someone who signed up. I looked for him earlier. He has not been on the meeting since it started. He signed up virtually. And so I'm assuming there are several other people who also signed up for 19 as well as 18. Yes, but we also had Mr. John Young. I'm assuming he is not testifying on 19. How about Ms. Ginger, who also testified on 18? She is online. Let's find out. Oh. Ms. Ginger?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you intend to testify on this bill as well?
Yes.
Okay. You may begin your testimony when you're ready.
I'm going to be quick and to the point. I know everybody is starting to get antsy, so I did send each council person an email today on behalf of the board of the Kingsville Civic Association. We do support this legislation, and we do agree with the previous speakers as well as to the benefits of the Erdl. That is all.
Pamela Eckert, who is here in person. Oh.
I should have paid, right?
Is this on? Yes. It is. Testing, okay. I'm much like Renee Remedi that was up earlier. everything that I have to testify or talk about has been said, and probably more articulately than I could say it. I'm Pam McComas-Ecker, president of the Boring Community Association, representing over 200 members in District 4. We're a very rural area, but we have a nice town setting, and we have a lot of residential areas too. Most of the farms in our area are family farms, generational farms, working farms, and a lot of it is in conservation. We are for Bill 1825 and 1925. And as I said, many things that I was going to say have been said. The recent influx of solar installations as a whole are our concern. We currently have 2 in our small town area. The 2 that we have are less than a mile apart maybe, and we have 2 more applications that are coming up. So the setback we didn't have for the 2 existing are really important, hopefully for the 2 that may be becoming. So, you know, I think those setbacks are very, very important. One of the current ones we do have residential homes very close by, and I think it would be helpful. I think just in a whole, there needs to be a lot more thought into that saturation part, which leads me to something that hasn't been discussed today. The county council is being increased by 2 more districts. With that increase, the representation for county citizens comes the probable expectation of 20 more allowed solar plants, because the current allowable is 10 per district. We have 7 districts, and that's 70. Now you're going to split them, and you're going to make 9. If your answer to that you agree that there are going to be 20 more just because of a lottery, then the answer today should be very pro both bills, because we need more protection. Because if you're going to allow 20 more solar fields in Baltimore County just because of a drawing of new lines, we have a problem. And I don't know, I have not heard anyone say anything about that. I don't know if it's a thought among council members of how that's going to be dealt with, because that's a huge concern to those of us living above the Erdl and in preserved areas. So I thank you, Councilman Koch, for all your years of being a good gatekeeper and protecting northern Baltimore County. And I thank you, Councilman Marks, for your putting the bill in. And we hope that you're successful. But I must say, today has been confusing to me. My councilman, who we are thrilled with, is Councilman Jones. He's been an asset to us. And I did not diss your questions today. I heard what you said about the farms, the family farms. I just want to put one caveat in there. Living on a farm and having neighbors of a lot of family farms, I think sometimes it's exaggerated when people use the excuse we need it for financial gain as far as the farmers. That's what land preservation does. You put your farm into land preservation and you gain financial, maybe not what you could have if you were developing it, but you still gain quite a nice amount of money to invest in your property. So I want you to just, you know, that's just a caveat there of the difference of opinion. So, and we'll talk about that, won't we, Julian?
Absolutely. Listen, I thank you for all your service to the community.
Well,
thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. We've worked well together, and we hope, you know, we can continue to do that.
I'm going to, look, I was making a note. Mm-hmm. You said there was a couple of applications being made.
Mm-hmm. Well, the special hearings, or the special exception hearings are coming up.
To your point about adding more council districts, but also My old District 4 had 10 solar farms. And now your area is a part of my district. I still have the original 10. I'm wondering, how are we counting the 10 when the district lines change?
We've wondered that too, because of grandfathering in or whatever. It's a moving line, and we don't understand how some of the decisions that even are currently being made on special exceptions, because they might not be allowed. I mean, depending on what you all do, what does that do to those decisions? I mean, it's very, very confounding to us, and we need help.
I'm wondering, are we looking at it as the geographical boundaries that were set out when the bill was passed? Or do that change when the districts change?
That's what I'm saying.
I think it does change potentially. So I think that's something that the council may want to revisit before the end of the term, to make some potential tweaks to the solar, irrespective of, what's happening now, but there may be some things to get ready. See, there's always, as I think someone mentioned, ripple effects of things, and this is the council expansion. I think we've tried to hit every base that will be affected, such as planning board and other county commissions and whatnot. This is one I think that we'll have to scratch our heads a little bit and look at.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And the other point that you made about the ERDL, and I understand your thoughts, but I had a chill run up my spine when I was online and I was looking, and there was a state delegate, our delegate, who casually inferred that just move the ERDL for, their needs. And to you, Councilman, that really bothers me. So if there is a way of codifying and making things more concrete for our ERDL, I am pro.
Well,
okay.
Just to be clear, Pam.
Yes.
I think, the reason I object is because I cannot predict the future.
Mm-hmm.
As hard as I try, I cannot predict the future. There may come a time when it is in the best interest of you, your family, or a future council, or a future county executive, future planning board. And my point is, I can't predict the future. I appreciate the ERDL. I live outside of the ERDL. I love my farm. I don't have a farm, but I love the space. But the point I'm making is, I don't think it's necessary to put it in the charter and to make it extremely difficult for future councils to put so much power in the hands of a few when I don't know what the future may hold. We're looking at budget constraints right now. Baltimore County is not growing. We're looking at budget constraints. We don't have enough to fund our schools. We're going to do the best we can. There's always need out there. And so one of the problems I have on the council, so many times we get in our silo, we look at one thing. Nancy Hafford came up here and talked about housing. Housing. There's a shortage of housing. There's a sucking sound of kids graduating from college, leaving Baltimore County, going somewhere else to live. And that's not good for us. Now, I'm not saying we should move to ERDL, but what I'm saying is, let's leave the door open and not make it more difficult for future councils, for people that'll sit in my seat 10, 15, 20 years from now, who may want to make a different decision. And you and your children may want to have a different decision. So that's all I'm saying. It's worked well for 60 years. Why do we want to open up that door now?
Right.
Because I guarantee you, there will be people that when we get into this debate and the people start voting, they're going to look at the ERDL in a total different way that you and I look at it. And they're going to say things about, you all will be round up in this area and you're going to be paying taxes for the people out there. And all of this stuff is going to come up. And I'm afraid that we may enter this debate about the ERDL when it's not necessary.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you. Councilman Patoka?
Yes.
I was very impressed with your red flag for the CZMP issue. Our small town has had 2 CZMP processes that have just drained us and wore us out. We were half successful the first time around, someone trying to put ML zoning right in the center of our little town. And then this past time, we were successful with Julian overcoming it and beating it. The problem is, you were exactly right. If that flag was there and the planning staffing committee was listened to, it was in contradiction to the ERDL from the beginning, and nothing should have ever been done.
Yeah, I mean, the planning board recommendations don't always reflect the best planning practices.
But the ERDL mandates with ML certain amount of water and septic, whatever, but we don't have. We're outside the ERDL, and there was no reason why.
So you have a couple of things going on. You have the planning staff recommendation.
Right, and that their recommendation was.
The staff are professional planners. They make their best evaluation.
But they did
of
a
the
good job.
situation. The planning board are lay folks that
I know.
May not, they're given guidance. They should follow the master plan, but I think you see changes and, you don't have to believe me. You could just look at.
Well, thank goodness we, right, but thank
goodness.
goodness we had Julian, so. Councilman Jones did the right thing, yes. So, but I'm just saying, I think what you're trying to set in motion there would be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ecker. I know one thing we learned at Councilman Jones's CZMP hearing was keep boring, boring.
We did. You heard it.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this subject?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank God. Let's move on to Bill 1325. Councilman Young, zoning restriction regulations, tattoo and body piercing establishments. Did you want to say, we talked about this last work session, but.
I have no new additions other than, well, no new additions. It's the same situation that you faced and we faced. We're working with a property owner to try and allow for the proper use in the area that they've purchased and signed a lease with. So.
Okay. Any
Mr. Chairman.
questions for Councilman Young anywhere? No, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Is there an
resolution, it's a little out of order, but resolution 15-25 is also sponsored by Mr. Young, and it's
Councilman,
somewhat
okay.
related to the bill that Mr. Young just discussed.
Do you want to
Sure, happy to do
that
that.
while you're at it?
So the resolution expands the CRD along Route 40 to make sure that the bill that I put in applies to the property. There was a miscommunication with the requesters and which CRD they were in. So this makes sure that the law would apply to them if it were to pass this council.
Okay.
By expanding it to capture the property. Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Okay. You don't have
I
something?
do not, I'm sorry.
All right, sorry. Bill 1425, this is Councilman Catch, uses permitted in manufacturing light zone, automotive enthusiast club. Councilman Catch, unless you have something new to tell us, I think I guess I'll ask, does anyone have any more questions for Councilman Catch on the enthusiasts?
The only thing I want to add is that I have an amendment that will be introduced that will not allow the building of a racetrack or racing facility, because this building is in rural northern Baltimore County. And so that's the amendment.
What if the enthusiasts wanted to have the horses pull their cars?
Well, they could go to Pimlico. Send them to
What about
Pimlico.
golf carts? Okay, We'll move on. Bill 1525, Councilman Jones, zoning regulations, uses permitted in BMCT district, elderly housing facilities, and overcrowded school districts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to be very brief. Currently, apartments on the ground floor are only permitted in the Owings Mills, Hunt Valley, and White Marsh areas that have the BMCT zone. The main thing this bill is doing is modifying where in Owings Mills area that is zoned BMCT, where apartments are permitted on the ground floor. Previously, they were geographic boundaries. The bill is now repealing those boundaries in Owings Mills only.
Mr. Councilman Jones, sorry. One question for you. The reference to overcrowded school districts, I'm not sure why that's in the bill. Was there a reason behind that? Because generally, elderly housing facilities don't have any pupil yield. I just don't know why it's referenced.
This was an attempt to clean up some language as it relates to whether or not we're calling things 55 and over. Let me see something. Let me look at my notes. Bill 1525 attempts to change the terminology for elderly housing facilities to age-restricted 55 and older, independent dwelling units, housing for the elderly, assisted dwelling facilities, continuing care facilities. There has always been some confusion about whether or not an elderly housing facility, which is not defined in the BCZR 101, meaning housing for the elderly, which is defined in BCZR 101. As far as 55 and older, assisted living and continuing care, the housing for the elderly, housing for, that's why that was in there. Basically, just trying to change or clean up some terminology. Doesn't affect anything to do with school. Go ahead, Secretary.
The last part of the note, actually, I think, says it almost as well as Mr. Jones. Bill 1525 amends the elderly housing facility exemption in the county's APFO regarding school overcrowding. Currently, the exemption is stated as elderly housing facilities as defined in the zoning regulations. The bill replaces this language with those four aforementioned senior-based housing types that Mr. Jones mentioned, the 55 and older age restricted, independent dwelling units, the housing for the elderly as defined, housing for the elderly as opposed to elderly housing. I know it's semantic, but just to make sure we're being consistent, assisted living facilities and continuing care facilities. So it's just making sure that the nomenclature is consistent.
Okay. Councilman Patoka.
Thank you. I just have a question of clarity. I don't know, not questioning the bill, I have a question about the definition of the student yield relationship. I know when I was 55, I had a seventh grader. I know that Councilman Marks, when he's 55, he will have a student yield in his house.
Kindergartner.
So if Councilman Marks and I, if we move to this facility, we would have, well, not me anymore, but Councilman Marks, yes.
Would you be allowed to move to the facility?
It's always an anomaly.
No, I think people are having kids older nowadays. And so, I don't know, maybe we should look at that as part of this. I'm willing to offer a friendly amendment if we can figure out what that is.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Katz.
Yes, this question is for the council secretary. I know that I put in legislation regarding senior housing, and I know that it does, that if you have senior housing under certain circumstances, you can allow a minor to live in the same apartment or house as the senior for a limited amount of time. I think it's 2 months or something like that. So, you know, Well, I guess Councilman Marks could move into one of these facilities, send the child to public school, then homeschool the rest of the time. I think I've solved his problem.
Councilman Mark says if he moves in it, he's going to take his chickens with him.
That's going to be a problem.
Not in my district.
All right. Any other questions on Councilman Jones's 1525 bill? No? All right. Next up is 1625. Councilman Marks, uses permitted in RC5 zone. This could be an ARDL violation. Christmas Tree Farms and Plumbing, Mechanical, and Utility Company.
I am going to ask at the legislative session that we carry over this bill to the following session.
Okay.
So there'll be another work session where we can discuss this.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Next up, Resolution 1625, Council Members Ertel, Patoka, Jones, and Marks, support for families and businesses facing unaffordable BGE bills. Councilman Young, you're going to put some future amendments, you said? Right. Polly from BGE's here, and we could always have him come up and talk. So we put this resolution together just, acknowledging that there is an issue. We know there's not a lot of good answers here, but it warrants a larger discussion about the power needs for the state of Maryland and how we're going to address that as Marylanders. Polly, did you want to say anything from a BGE perspective, or? I know you took the time and you sat here all night with us.
I was just going to say, I put together a very lovely presentation and sent it to the council so that you guys could review, and if you'd like me to come back.
Okay. All right, that would be great. Councilman Young? Whoever wants to, I just need someone to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Only thing I want to say is I'm just going to ask BGE and the General Assembly to do whatever is necessary to provide some relief for the citizens that are suffering right now at the hands of some of these extremely high bills. And I know my electric bill has gone up an awful lot. I realize it was cold, but I guess I also realize that fortunate enough, I will complain, but I'm not rich, but it's not going to change my quality of life. I'm going to pay the bill. But there are those of us in our community that simply don't have it. I've been hearing from seniors, I've been hearing from people on fixed income, and they are hurting and they don't know what they're going to do. So I think we need to do whatever's necessary. And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I can go into a lot of details, but at the end of the day, whatever's necessary to provide some relief for the citizens is what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Ketch.
Yeah, I think that it's imperative that the Public Service Commission and the state legislature make plans for the future so that we don't continue to have these high energy rates. I don't know if you know it, but all of the fossil fueled power generating plants have to close down by a certain date in Maryland. That legislation was passed, I believe, last session or the one before. So that's going to get us even more trouble because we're going to have to get our energy from other states. And so I would really like to see the state of Maryland have a plan if they're going to force fossil fuel plants out of business, then they need to be replaced in the state of Maryland. After all, 40% of the energy we use comes from out of state. So they need to plan for the future, and that's not been done.
We understand. Councilman Marks, did you have anything?
I agree with everything that's been said.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I
Councilman
want to be a co-sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You get that, Mr. Secretary? Yes, sir. Okay.
One, thank you for drafting this and the thoughtfulness you put into the moment that created the need to put something in a resolution for it. Appreciate the conversation before we had this. I wanted to wait to the end because I will, and we've already discussed, I'll have some amendments that I think are substantive that add to it. I appreciate Mr. Pauly from BGE because one of the suggestions was going to be an amendment that called for a public comment opportunity and you all to do exactly that, but also an opportunity for the public. We sit in these positions and often get briefs and have access to organizations as well as programs that can assist folks in situations where they can't pay for their power, they can't cover the cost of an increase. We have other resources available for the county. Some of those other suggestions that I will run by you all before introducing at the legislative session that we vote on it, address that, as well as potentially drawing attention to the programs that the county already has available and how we can bolster and play an active role in the future when these things happen so that we can also draw attention to the public that we have resources at our disposal to assist them when they come into these situations. So I appreciate the effort and, after your all's approval of the amendments, I'm happy to sign on as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think we're coming into the home stretch now. Councilman Marks, Resolution 1725.
Mr. Chair, let's make it unanimous, and I'll sign on as co-sponsor, please.
Councilman Crandall, you want to be a co-sponsor? Is that what you said?
Resolution 1625, yes, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, please, thank you.
We will take care of that,
Yes.
Councilman. All right, 1725.
Thank you very much, and I think I am the last item. So this resolution formally designates a commercial revitalization district to include parts of the White Marsh Town Center. I think this is very consistent with everything we've been talking about today, the need to repurpose our older areas. This is a town center that is now well over, gosh, it was built in 1981 or so. So what is that, 40 years? Definitely, we 44 years.
44.
We definitely want to support the redevelopment of this area. We have a letter that I've distributed to you all from the ownership of White Marsh Mall, and I appreciate your support.
Is there any other business tonight that I missed, Mr. Secretary? I feel like I missed something, but I don't.
No, sir.
Checked everything on my list.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here and having the patience to sit through this. And I think we had some good discussion tonight, whether we all agree. Not always, but it's all good discussion and productive for the future of the county, I think. Councilman Young.
I could also just reiterate those same points. I appreciate the debate on an important issue that clearly are coming from multiple angles, one representing our constituencies and districts that also look different. So appreciate the candor and the willingness to discuss before and during the work session. Thank you.
Yeah, it was good discussion. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. 44. Oh, it's